Hey everyone who wants to go on an adventure. It's me, the Wizard Gandor, or whatever. Stephen needed to record a little prelude to open the video, but some of you know he's in China, and his mic there's no good. By the way, was just joshing you when I said I was a wizard. It's actually me, soulless AI-generated Joe Biden, but I guess that's a tautology. Anyway, Stephen wanted Sir Ian McKellen for the prologue here, but he was busy not being an AI voice option. Stephen's been trying to get Sam to watch these stinking movies for, 5 years? 10 years? Years. 1.9 trillion. Well, it finally happened. And so, just like Sam's first time watching all the Jurassic movies, hey, I remember those. Little Hughes and Great Man, and those special effects. Still don't know he did it. Anyway, Lord of the Rings, man. You know who was given a ring of power once by this guy, Sean. A real nice dude. Ring didn't seem to do squat for me, though.
The ring brought unnatural long life. For 500 years, it poisoned his mind.
Stephen also wanted me to mention that they forgot to turn on the ring light for the start of the review. What a stupid son of a bitch. But it gets better, apparently. Anyway, it held you long enough. Now let's get back to Scott and Michael, or whoever. May the force be with you.
And here we are. We are just first thing in the morning after watching. What was the name of the movie?
Fellowship of the Ring.
There we go. Just checking. Just checking how that's like the bare minimum. How much you were paying attention. Yeah. We
don't remember
watched
anything else apart from that.
Jesus Christ. We just finished watching it last night. We're up in the morning. We got our coffee. We got our horrible recording setup. And now we're going to talk about how much you did, or otherwise, this movie. So what did you think?
I think I quite enjoyed it, which is more than I thought I was going to say when I first started watching it. Mm-hmm. But there were parts of this film I didn't enjoy, and I'm not looking forward to saying anything negative about a film. And again, I liked the film. I did like it. There was one.
So I'm only saying that to sort of put your mind at rest. Like, it's fine to have criticisms of this movie, even though it's one of my all-time favorites, as these always tend to be, the ones that I show you. And it's a very beloved film. It's a very, very beloved franchise. Yada yada yada. But if you have issues with it, that's perfectly fine. I think Fellowship of the Three is probably the one that people might find the most fault with, excluding myself, who has a lot of issues with the extended cut Return of the King, and I think I'm the only person in the world who does. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
We've got about 10 hours between solid viewing.
But no, you liking what you saw is good enough for a first viewing, because you... how about we talk a little bit about Green Fields? How you describe a certain genre of fantasy that you just cannot enjoy.
Think of when you've just logged into Steam, you've clicked on the store page, and you see an advert for another game where the text is a little bit orangey, and all the screenshots are a bloke with a sword and shield looking like he's fighting someone else on the Windows XP background. And that's what I mean by Green Fields. Very
old school style fantasy tropey genre, which of course Tolkien pretty much created. So it makes sense if it's, got some of the tropey fantasy stuff in there. But you kind of have this almost reactionary just, nope, do not want to deal with. Anytime I've brought this fucking box set to your house before.
You have.
When I visited and been
I'd argue you've brought it twice. I swear you brought it twice.
Last time I brought it, you were, after me being there, I was going to be there for a week. On about day 5, you were like, maybe we could watch the first one. Now, at that point, I'm like, there's no point, because we're not going to have time to watch all 3, and I won't see you again for another 6 months to a year, so no. If we're doing it, we're watching all 3 of them in, like, the space of a week or whatever. So, yeah, a little bit of pulling teeth, but we finally got there. I won't badger on about that point anymore. But the movie itself, then, you enjoyed it enough?
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to watching more?
After the ending of the first one, I am enjoying I am not enjoying. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I am looking forward to seeing more.
So, opening cutscene. We got a bit of a prologue, kind of explaining a bit of the backstory, a bit of the history.
The fingies get chopped off.
The fingies get chopped off. You really like the fingies. You kept saying throughout the movie, why don't they just give him the ring back? Let Sauron regain form, and then just cut the fingies off again.
And it worked last time.
I think, as I said, I don't think he'll fall for that second time. Plus, Sauron only got to that point the first time because, like, humanity and the elven races were at their height. You know, the height of their power. Nowadays, everything's kind of shit. You got the gist of the prologue, right? Was there any kind of... We did talk a little bit throughout the movie. Obviously, I need to explain some things just so you aren't completely fucking bewildered. But, like, I didn't want to overly, like, lore dump you more than the movie already was. But did you have any kind of outstanding questions about...
Like, how many years did it take for him to get to that point? Or is it literally like... He got there after thousands upon thousands of years and about 1 million...
To what point?
Like, the point of, you know...
When he returned?
No, in the prologue, yeah, when he was about
okay. Do you want me just to explain the plot of the Rings of Power? Basically, long story short, Sauron... So we get to the Shire, where the actual movie itself opens, don't we? And we meet the hobbits.
And it's so nice.
It's so nice, isn't it? You said something during the movie, you're like, I can't believe how colourful this is.
It is honestly one, like... And again, I don't know when to go on about this. I feel like this is going to be a long video. Let's just preface that now. It's a long film. This film, for a film shot in like the late 90s, looks amazing. It actually looks fucking better than most films in current year. Mm-hmm. It looks so good.
That's something that you were very surprised at when I mentioned it.
Yeah, when you mentioned this when it was filmed, I couldn't believe you.
Mm-hmm. So, I didn't want to talk about this too much last night. I mean, I started that... All three of these movies were filmed back-to-back. Not even back-to-back, all simultaneously. The production schedule was weird, but very, very well planned in advance, because the pre-production on this film was something like 3 years. Crazy amount of planning ahead, building props, building armors, crafting all this stuff, storyboarding and everything else, and then they were able to just actually film the movie. Started in, like, what was it, October 1999?
I read something that they built the sets like as early as possible, so they could let them get a little bit overgrown and sort of world worn a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Hobbiton, the Shire, that still exists. I mean, admittedly, I think they disassembled it after the Lord of the Rings, rebuilt it for the Hobbit, and then it's kept up for the Hobbit. So you could still visit that set. It still exists in the hills somewhere.
Along with all the weed.
Along with all the pipe weed.
And the smoking of pipe weed.
What are Hobbits' favourite things, Sam?
They love eating. They love drugs. And they just love having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the brewing of ales and the smoking of pipe weed. But where our hearts truly lie is in things that grow and good-tilled earth. Hobbits are fucking lovely. The Shire is fucking lovely.
But you can't help but smile seeing them, and I'm not usually like that kind of person when it comes to films, but like whenever it is a scene with them, you do sort of pick up a little bit compared to how sort of dismal some other parts of the film can be.
Well, you did call the Hobbits gross, though.
Yeah, they're a bit ugly, but like they still sort of make you smile.
I mean, at least they're not the Hobbit animated movie ugly. I'm gonna show you that. 1 second. What the fuck is that rat bastard?
Okay, I've seen a different animated. That is disgusting.
That is rank. But yeah, we're in the Shire. We meet our first of the principal characters. Of course, Bilbo.
The de-yassified version.
The de-yassified, non-Martin Freeman Bilbo. Frodo and his best friend / manservant, Sam.
Slave.
Basically, the actual relationship between Frodo and Sam, before we get into talking about, you know, the memes which I tire greatly of, is basically Frodo and Bilbo. They're like upper crust Hobbit society. I mean, Tolkien himself was quite a upper class kind of bloke, which he knew. Whereas Sam is definitely more working class. He's a gardener. The actual direct influence between Frodo and Sam came from his time in the trenches of World War One. And I can't remember what they're called, but basically there was this class-like private whose role was to basically manage the day-to-day stuff for the officers. You know, officers are busy like doing war things, I guess. But you have these people who are like making their teas, cooking their meals, basically just taking care of them, you know. And Tolkien himself was sort of officer class, and he just had a lot of respect for these people. He's like, they're completely overlooked. They'll never be like sung of in the future. But holy shit, we could not have done the war without these people. You know, we relied on them. You know, and that's kind of what Sam is to Frodo in this movie. And he is absolutely the best character. How do you feel about it? Actually, I don't know if we want to talk too much about characters now, because we're having introduced most of them.
Yeah,
but,
we'll move on.
Yeah. It's my 111th birthday! Of course, how can I forget? Gandalf. Of course, he's introduced at this point. Ian McKellen's Gandalf. A iconic character, iconic performance.
Got absolutely zero faults of his appearance. Like, it's just... I just wish there was more of him in this film. Even if a lot of it is just him getting chucked around and falling over, not as much as certain other characters. Every scene he's in, you just really, I think it's his voice. I think it's just really relaxing to listen to him every time.
So Gandalf is I did say that Sam's my favorite character, but Gandalf is also my favorite character. All the best lines in these movies. My favorite in this movie. Perhaps in the series, when Frodo is lamenting like how he wished the ring had never come to him. He wished that he didn't have to go on this fucking quest or any of that. And Gandalf says, "So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All that they have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." And that brings a fucking tear to my eye every time. Gandalf is fucking great, and he fucking dies. Never to be seen again, Sam. Literally. He's not coming back!
Oh, I felt good. So yeah, one thing I will have to say is that certain people's deaths didn't really mean much to me, because other people have spoiled this death to me loads of times.
It's hard not to be spoiled.
It's hard not to be spoiled.
Did you know that Darth Vader is actually Luke Skywalker's father?
No, I didn't have a clue.
Did you not know? I'm sorry.
We'll
watch that after this. Yeah, it's hard to not be, not just pick things up through cultural osmosis. Yeah. So obviously, probably the death itself, the shock, and oh no, we're never going to see Gandalf again. Probably not really the point, but the scene itself, the actual moment of it, I still think it's pretty powerful.
It's more the fact that I literally had someone show me the scene where he is like coming back and he's like, oh, he's normal now.
Would you do that?
I don't know.
That really bothers me when people like share media with friends, but they do it in the most ass backwards way possible. That's like me. Hey Sam, you've never seen The Lord of the Rings before. Let's start by watching the Battle of Five Armies extended cut. Like why the fuck would you do that? Anyway, adventure actually kicks off. They realize what the ring is. If it wasn't clear, there are plenty of magic rings in this world, even beyond just the 3, the 7, and the 9. There were untold numbers of other rings that just exist. And all that this ring seemed to do was make Bilbo invisible. And so Gandalf knew about it, didn't really think anything of it, because the chances of this being the One Ring, this basically legendary god-tier artifact, it would be like me having this and then finding out this is actually the holy fucking grail. Like, you would never have expected it.
No, because it's just your mate's magic ring in a
even
world
if like it turned like water into wine or something. You're like, oh wow, that's a pretty funky magic mug you've got there. But would you really think it was like the magic mug?
No.
Like, not really. It's not really the first conclusion you jump to. But he starts to get his suspicions when Gandalf himself tries to touch the ring. And he's starting to get a little bit of a bad vibe, a little bit of a sussy vibe from Bilbo's reactions to it towards the end. He goes off on a bit of a research. And I told you after the movie ended that scene of like Gandalf leaving the Shire, going off to Gondor, that was, by the way. Yeah, that was several years. I can't remember exactly. It's like, possibly like 10 years or something Gandalf was away for. In the movie, it could be like a week, and you would never have known.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. Like, so when they went to like the sort of the everyone looks like Filch pub.
Oh, Bree, yes,
Yeah,
the prancing pony.
God, everyone was disgusting in that bar.
You thought the hobbits were gross, and then you saw the humans.
The fact that they keep going on about humans being the only hope, and then they all look like Filch.
You can kind of get Elrond's slight racism towards mankind when that's the best we got. Just realised we didn't have the ring light on, so I don't know. Maybe the light, the brightness will be.
We wanted
better
to get to this as soon as possible, really, whilst
yeah,
all the ideas are still in there.
Yeah, what were we talking about?
Ugly humans.
A lot of time passed. Gandalf runs off. Fucking finds out about the ring. Comes back. Oh, it is the bad ring. It's the bad one. So adventure begins. They head off. We meet two new characters. In Farmer Maggot's crop. Do you remember their names? More importantly, do you remember which one was which?
I don't, but I know that one was called Pippin.
Yep, Merry and Pippin.
And I think Pippin is the one who keeps fucking up during this film.
Pippin is a fuck up. Arguably less of a fuck up than Frodo. No, we'll see. Oh, we get a little bit of a chase with the Black Rider, the Ringwraith, the Nazgul, gabagooling all over the place. The Knights Cavalry. The Nazgul are surprisingly easily duped in this first movie. They're kind of dumbasses. The old bait and switch. Ah, pillows. Grrr. Fucking idiots.
Someone made a cut of the film where that's actually where it ends.
Gandalf goes to visit Christopher Lee, who hasn't been cut from this movie. And yeah, we find out, oh no, Saruman, he's turned traitor. He's siding with the enemy. They have a little old man fight. Gandalf gets shoved up in the attic, and you spent a good portion, like, kind of just more concerned about where Gandalf was.
Yeah, because the last thing we saw, he was like screaming away, being shoved in up the attic.
You were genuinely concerned, like, where is he? How's he doing? The next thing we know, he's just pops up in Rivendell, like, Gandalf, where were you? Ah, that's a good story for another time. I pointed out to you, obviously, some of the changes in the adaptation from the book to this. Obviously, we do not have Tom Bombadil. I'm sorry. You do not get to enjoy the wacky shenanigans of totally out of place fucking forest man who shoves the ring on his dick and starts swinging it around you like a helicopter. It's like completely takes you out of the fucking story. Yeah, I'm sorry they cut him. Also, I mentioned this, but the Lady Elf Arwen who comes to rescue them is a movie thing, because in the book they get rescued by completely generic elf whose name I don't even remember. And is never seen again. And everyone is like, but what about Gil Globelschlag, whatever his name is? What about Glob Shitto? Where is he? They took him out of the movie, damn you, Peter Jackson. And instead they included a character who, like, otherwise doesn't really get much of an introduction, but is kind of important towards Aragorn's personal story arc. So yeah, swings and roundabouts. There's certainly some positive changes in the adaptation. There's some negative ones we might get to later, but yeah, definitely when you're adapting that much fucking book material, which a lot of it is just meandering nonsense, to a movie, which, like, normal people need to enjoy, such as yourself, you can't just stick word on paper. And I think people who are good at adapting understand this. George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones writer, has worked quite a bit on TV, and I think he, less said about season 8 the better, but he generally understands and appreciates what adapting things needs, and so he was very good with, like, the showrunners changing things for the Game of Thrones TV show. You know, because he's worked on TV, and he understands, like, yeah, we can't have everything that I wrote as it is on paper, you know. Some people are good at this, some people are less so. Christopher Lee. We'll talk more about that in the third movie, probably. I didn't actually mention this. He is the only member of the cast who actually met Tolkien.
Really?
Yeah, and he is a massive Lord of the Rings fan. Well, sorry, I say is. But he was a big Lord of the Rings fan. I think he read the books every year. But the downside of this, and being quite of an old school actor, is that he was not very good at understanding when cuts needed to be made and understanding the decisions from a movie maker point of view.
Because he was viewing it from an almost fan perspective.
Yes. And so there was a falling out between him and Peter Jackson, but I think we'll talk about that more in the third movie. So, now we probably come to the midpoint in the movie, which is the Council of Elrond, where we suddenly get thrown into a bunch of new characters arriving. Again, I feel like this is one of those... This is probably taking place over a couple of months. Messages are sent out to all different corners of the world. Ambassadors basically are brought in to this meeting to discuss what to do with the ring. Instead, it kind of happens in 5 minutes. People sort of show up while Elrond is talking about how he should have pushed Isildur into a volcano. I was there 3,000 years ago. And as you say, there is a solution to this. Throw it into the fire! Destroy it! No. I'll fucking go here.
It was right there, and it's like no one would even know you did it as well. That you could have just said, "There's no guardrail."
Oh no, he tripped. It was such a tragedy. He was hit by a stray energy blast. We get introduced to a whole load of new characters. And at this point, we probably talk about characters now, because everyone's kind of introduced at this point. So, do you remember? Names. On you go. List off all the characters.
Sadly, only two are fucking coming to
Who
mind.
you got?
Boromir.
Yep. Sean Bean's character, the Gondorian.
And the only one the only one I could really cling to anymore is
After Gandalf's death, yeah.
is Gimli.
Gimli the dwarf. Mm-hmm. So obviously, a lot of characters halfway through the movie. A lot of them don't get too much characterization, probably the least of all being the elf, whose name you don't remember. If I told you it began with an L, would that help?
Legolas.
Legolas.
I was expecting... No, I knew who that was. I was expecting to try and throw some curveball. Like, oh, you don't remember...
You don't remember Glubshitto? The fucking Goblin. You don't remember the Goblin on the team? Oh, he was such a character. With his wacky hijinks and his one-liners. Do you not remember when all the orcs barged into the tomb and they fought the troll? And then he went, "Well, that just happened." Do. Don't you remember the fucking Marvel tier shenanigans from Gabby the Goblin? The fuck are we talking about? Anyway, so yeah, we have Boromir, Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, Gandalf, and then the hobbits, Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin.
Yeah.
9 companions who shall be the Fellowship of the Ring. So who were your favourites? I kind of want to do a running tier list, and we'll address this every movie as things sort of change around. But at the moment, what's your kind of tops? Gandalf, Gimli?
Yeah, I think they're going to go at the top.
You really liked Frodo to start with, didn't you?
I did, because admittedly he was the only one that didn't look like every other hobbit in the film. So it was like, okay, I've got one sort of...
The one yassified hobbit.
Yeah, the one yassified hobbit. But then he kept letting me down.
Kept letting himself down?
Yeah, he literally kept letting himself...
I shouldn't have pointed out the drinking game. I mentioned there is a drinking game you could play to these movies.
That will kill you.
That will kill you. And one of them is, every time Frodo fall down. Frodo fall down! Oh, Frodo fall down! Jesus Christ. I shouldn't have mentioned it, because you couldn't stop seeing it after that.
It was actually driving me insane. Because I just couldn't... There were so many instances where everyone else is stabbing someone or, like, fighting something, and Frodo's response is just to fall over again.
Mm-hmm. So where did he start and where did he end?
Or get stabbed. He does like getting stabbed in this film as well.
So where's Gandalf and Gimli?
I'd put them at the top.
S?
S tier.
Okay. Where did Frodo start for you?
I I'd say he started in A and worked his way down to a reluctant B.
A reluctant B. Okay. What about your namesake, Sam? Samwise Gamgee.
Do you know what? Apart from the scene at the end that really annoyed me irrationally for some reason, I am going to put him in A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know what it is. The whole thing just felt really silly. Like, just him going, oh no, I can't swim. I don't know, mate.
Launching himself into a river when he can't swim.
Yeah.
Why A though? Why? What did you like about him?
What do I like about him? He just seems like a nice bloke. Like, he just seems like he has remained firmly committed to his character and his purity. In that he doesn't seem like if any of them could be, I honestly believe any of them apart from him could probably be corrupted by the ring.
Aw.
Yeah.
That is such a good way of putting it, actually. Yeah.
And he does make me smile, apart from that one scene where my brain did just go, okay, this is really stupid. He's ran into water and can't swim. But apart from that, if I just ignore that, he is a solid A-tier character.
Great scene, though. If you ignore him launching himself into water, okay, he's just that. He's that loyal. He's that committed. He made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise. Don't you lose him, Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. Merry and Pippin? Again, probably not the most characterized duo in this film. But they get a little bit of like the troublemakers at the start.
I don't want to put anyone right at the bottom tier because there is no one who is currently calling out to me apart from I don't know. Can I put the humans in the pub in F tier? I guess I'll put them in C.
C, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They definitely get more as it goes on, especially, as it goes on. Aragorn? Strider? I did have to explain his character a bit to you. I think you got a bit confused during the whole council scene when so much new characters were introduced and we're finding out he's actually not called Strider, he's called Aragorn. He's Isildur's heir. He's the throne to Gondor. Gondor has no king. Gondor needs no king. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on there, I think.
I felt really weird about him, but due to scene at the end, which I will admit did get me a little bit.
With Boromir's death scene?
Yeah, that did actually get me a little bit.
The two of them.
I will. He initially started in B because initially it was like, okay, this is just, I don't know,
hero character,
John Mystery. He likes wearing black outfit. He has now jumped up to A, could be S in future.
Some interesting backstory to his introductory scene. Aragorn was originally cast as a different actor entirely for a good deal of the early production. They had whole scenes recorded with this other actor, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. But apparently, he was a massive knob. He was a pain in the ass to work with. The studio didn't want him. Peter Jackson was like, no, I really want this actor. But then within a very short time of working with him, he was like, nah, you were right, we shouldn't have had this guy. And they fired him, basically. They actually just fucking fired him. He just wasn't getting on with the other cast members. He just wasn't getting on with the crew. I don't know exactly what all the issues were, but either way, he got the sack. And I think the plan Bs they had were Russell Crowe, but Russell Crowe didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be typecast as a period piece sword warrior because he had just done Gladiator. I don't remember who else there was, but the other one was Viggo Mortensen, who is who we got. His first scene was his introductory scene in the bar there, and Peter Jackson wasn't super fond of it. He didn't think it was the best performance. I don't actually really looking at it now with that eye, I don't think it's the best Aragorn scene. There's maybe something a little bit off about it, so I could actually understand you being a little bit, I'm not sure about this guy right now, but he definitely gets better as the movie goes on. He didn't have enough time to get into his role. It was as simple as that. He got on a plane to New Zealand, and he was like, here's your outfit, go.
Honestly, he could have just been jet-lagged.
Yeah. But, so, considering that, okay, understandable. But definitely once he gets into the character, it gets going. And they do change a bit of his character from the book as well. In the book, he is, I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn. I am the heir of Gondor, yada, yada, yada. And he's just kind of, his motivation is to reclaim his throne. That's not what it's like in this. In this, he is a reluctant hero in that sense. He doesn't want it.
He seems very... he seems a lot more understated than I thought he would be. Like, he doesn't seem like he really... He doesn't seem like he really wants to be there half the time, in a way.
That's kind of, very good way of putting it. But he feels kind of duty-bound to come along. And when Gandalf kicks the bucket, he definitely does take on the role as leader, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He is basically thrown into this role that he never wanted. He's been living his life as a ranger, going around on his own, just guarding like the borders of, that part of the world.
Grinding XP.
Grinding XP, that's all he's been doing for the last 50 years. Guess how old his character is? We talked about this with Frodo was 50 or something.
It's either going to be really young or older than I think. I'm going to take two guesses. I'm going to say he's either only 29 or he is about 58.
Older than that. I can't actually remember. He's 87 or 90 or something.
87.
But he's got good genetics. He's built different. So there's a reason. And as I mentioned to you, again, there's another thing which isn't really super explained, that he grew up in Rivendell. He was basically raised by Elrond. And he's basically betrothed to Arwen, the elf. But of course, Elrond isn't super keen on that. He's kind of like, nope, she's coming with me and the rest of her family and the rest of our people. We're bugging out from Middle Earth. We're going to Valinor. We're taking a ship and we're leaving this fucking awful land. But I don't think it's actually mentioned in the movie, but basically there's kind of this understanding that if you become King of Gondor, then I'll let you marry me daughter. I think this might be more of a book thing than a movie thing. So, yeah, Aragorn. Kind of reluctant, definitely. Yeah, high-ranking character there. Legolas? Already kind of touched on him. There isn't much to his character.
I really don't want to say. I don't know what it is. There is something about him that kind of irrationally annoys me. And I wish...
I'll tell you what it is for me. He is the...
He's Hanzo. But when he's just going like that and killing anything on the screen.
Legolas is... You know in the classic Fallout games, when you just hover your mouse over things and it tells you, you see Ed is dead. You see a scruffy-looking man. You see Goop. Legolas is that. Crabeye from Dudland. Orcs. Fucking clouds. I don't know. He exists just to point things out to the audience and to the other crew members. He says what he sees.
Limbas. The whole of Gondor. Goblins. Orcs.
I really hate how low ranking I have him, and I thought, I'm sure you're gonna like him when you watch it. I really don't. I don't know why.
It's actually funny. Legolas was everybody's favourite character as the cool character. He was the one everybody wanted to play as in the Return of the King PS2 game, back when you were 12. Then you grew up a little bit and you like Aragorn. Then you grow up a little bit more and you play Gimli. But then you become a man and you play Sam. True story.
Is he even a playable character?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
We should totally play that game if we have time if we finish these movies. It's such a good game. Anyway.
Fuck it, I'll go in the void. I'll go D. Okay. I didn't want to, because again, I don't know who's going to watch this and be like, oh, I hate you. I hate everything you stand for. Sorry, table.
Sorry, Mike, that was all. Oh God, you see it jump on the screen there.
Yeah, was not a fan.
Okay. I mean, that's totally understandable. That he just doesn't have enough time to do anything. And to be perfectly honest, they kind of get more characterization in the movies than they do in the books. I think Gimli especially, he does not have much to say or do in the books. I think they kind of exist there more to show that this is an international, problem. It's all of the peoples of the world coming together to help. Not so much because Tolkien really wanted, oh, I gotta have this character. He's gonna have this character arc. He's gonna be... Not really. They more exist to be a part of the team rather than to be a character in and of themselves. So, if anything, the movies kind of do them a service. In this first movie, Gimli is given quite a bit of, like, almost emotional depth. Like, he is this little tough guy, but he's also very emotionally open with it. You know, he is that kind of classical idea of, like, the hero who not the stoic, I don't say anything, I just mope around and show no emotion. But no, it's the one who is super loyal, full fight, but will also break down and cry and show emotion and write fucking poetry and whatever the fuck they did back in the Greek days. You know what I mean, right? That is like Gimli. You know, when he finds out that his cousin is dead. You know, Balin and Moria. When Gandalf dies. Yeah, no, I really like Gimli. Problem is, the later on he becomes more comic relief. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And we will get to that.
Something tells me he's going to slip down in the rankings.
We'll see, maybe. Depends whether or not you jive with the comic relief. I'm not saying it's all bad. It's not all bad. But
does he look at the camera and say, well, that just happened?
He might as well. In the third movie, he might as well. Well, that just happened. And I suppose there's not too many side characters here, but Saruman? You don't have to give him a ranking, but just Christopher Lee's Saruman.
I'd have been happy to see more of him, just sort of having his little evil speeches to himself and playing with his little magic orb.
You were very like, what the fuck is going on? Why is there poop monsters coming out the ground? Did you kind of get the gist of what was happening there?
Like that there was sort of... He's artificially created, I guess.
He's creating not actually orcs, but Uruk-hai, who are like a more powerful breed of orcs. Because believe it or not, Tolkien did not go into the specifics of how orcs are made or how they reproduce. So the movie just did their own weird thing, and it you kind of just roll with it. It's magic.
It just sort of
it's
pop
dark
out the
magic
ground and go, Jameson, you slime.
They spring out of holes in the ground. Yeah. So yeah, and we'll obviously get more of Saruman as we go forward. We get a lot more, and then abruptly a lot less of Saruman as we go forward.
Can you almost pinpoint when they fall out of each other in this?
If we were watching the theatrical version, you could actually pinpoint the cut when they fall out. The cut at which point Christopher Lee's in the cinema going, "Where the fuck am I? Where the fuck am I?" I'm just going to ask you: is there any other points you had kind of in your mental list as we were going through? Just kind of rapid fire, whatever.
Again, the main point sort of coming to me here is the only bit of the film I didn't like, and I feel like I have to say it's going to make me sound like a right fucking simpleton, but like anyone who complained about people talking too long in the prequels,
politics,
needs to watch any scene where people are just sat in a circle talking about bollocks for like 20 to 30 minutes in Lord of the Rings. I don't know, it could have been the time of day. It could have been the fact we were watching it at like 10 p.m. But my eyes were glazing over the more and more.
I think it was only about 7 or 8 at that point. We finished the movie at 10. But it felt later, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. But like the moment that they were going...
The Council of Elrond, yeah. Just to be clear, for those who maybe don't know what he's talking about.
The Jedi Council.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just have to accept your word for it, because for me, obviously, it doesn't bother me. I like that scene. I like most scenes in this movie. The only parts of the film which kind of drag for me are the Ringwraith chase sequences. I feel like there's a certain point between Weathertop, when Frodo gets stabbed, and them getting to Rivendell. There's kind of okay, we get on with it. We've kind of done the Nazgul shenanigans for a while now. That's kind of the part where I start to fall off plus L plus ratio, and Lothlorien with Galadriel and all that. Like, I did wonder, that's the point in the movie where I start to like kind of look over. Like, we've been going for 3 hours or so now, and now we're getting a kind of slow scene. And I kind of worry that that's the point where people watching for the first time, are they getting bored? Are they starting to go like...
Again, I only had one scene I got bored in, that's the thing.
But you weren't bothered by Lothlorien too much, the Galadriel stuff?
No, not at all.
Okay, that's actually really encouraging to hear, because that's the one point in the movie I think I've always worried that people would fall out with most.
It actually woke me up a bit when she started...
when you started screaming at the camera and going inverted colours.
Yeah, that was, I loved it. I was like...
Galadriel is actually like a really interesting character generally. Probably the most powerful non-evil being in the setting. Like, arguably more so than Gandalf. She's got a long storied history. Probably genuinely could become like a Dark Lord herself had she taken the ring. Which was kind of what that scene was about. In place of a Dark Lord, you would have a queen!
Is she going for incredibly jaded? Because that's what it strikes me as.
Well, this is kind of what I was trying to explain about the rings earlier. The rings prolonging the elves. The elves were never really supposed to be in Middle-earth. The elves are from another continent, Valinor, the Undying Lands. They're immortal beings. They're almost closer to that level of God that I was describing earlier than they are to mortals. They're sort of in the middle. So they're you're taking these people almost out of a world that they belong and putting them into one which changes and decays and dies. That is like the mortal world. That is Middle-earth. You know what I mean? They're sort of out of time in a way. But the rings were supposed to like unnaturally prolong their place there, which is why things feel so off when you're in the Elven lands. That's why everything kind of feels that sort of sense of slowed down and
almost dreamlike.
Dreamlike, yeah, that's a perfect way of putting it. But the thing is, which it's not quite spelled out, but it is mentioned. It's sort of alluded to in this movie, is that if the ring is destroyed, the power of those rings will disappear, and that dreamlikeness will go. So the rings that are both keeping the elves from diminishing, but are also kind of keeping them trapped in this place, like we can't really leave. But if the ring's destroyed, then they're not going to have a choice, which is why, the ring being there is their doom either way. Either Sauron gets it and they're fucked, or they successfully destroy the ring and they're fucked. It'll spell the end of elvendom. They're not long for this world. Coming the next age, elves will no longer exist. So it's a bit of like a fall off plus L plus ratio. I don't know. What was it? Big action scene in Moria. Do you enjoy that enough?
Oh, I did enjoy that. Yeah.
And you liked it when this big boss showed up, didn't you?
The old Iron King showed up.
Would you like to see more of him, perhaps?
I hope we get a little bit more of him, because I feel like him just appearing just to sort of
fall down a pit.
Yeah, L plus
monkey fall.
Fell off, right? Yeah.
We're not allowed to make that joke anymore. We've hit our limit.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a few more of these turning up.
You did mention shaky cam. Ah, yes, the movie which invented shaky cam is what you said during the tomb fight with the goblins. The goblins! And then the other big action set piece is at the end of the movie, which is in the books is actually the start of the second book. The second book opens with a big fight, but I think probably a good choice to end this movie with the big the Uruk-hai and everything else. Boromir's death, which did we talk about Boromir? Boromir, what's his rating for you? I don't think we did.
The problem is, it's quite a top-heavy tier list, but obviously you've just got to not mind that.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, this just means
that's a good thing.
Legolas is getting really picked on, but again, I think for me, he's another A character.
I really like Boromir. He is sort of the villain in the... He's not a villain, though. What I like about him is he is the most human character. Aragorn is kind of an ubermensch, if we're being honest. He is kind of... I have royal blood, and therefore that makes me naturally superior to other beings. Which, to be honest, kind of is a Tolkien thing. Tolkien was a bit of a, kingly men are just naturally better than you. Sort of, which is not something I really agree with or like, but it does come through in his writings. There's something just special. He has the special blood. Boromir, though, is, by comparison, a much more flawed character, but in a way which is completely, not quite relatable, because obviously I've never been in a situation where I've been corrupted by an evil ring. But, like, I don't know, you just get to understand him more.
You can convert it into something else. You could say, again, like, yeah, it's like an addiction sort of analogy.
I tried to explain, like, what's going on in Boromir's situation. Actually, I don't want to talk too much about it, because we will get some more in the next movie with Boromir.
I am very excited to watch this second one, admitted. I'm not so much for the third, because I'm not liking the sort of...
Oh, sorry, I have kind of talked down the third. I mean, again, the third is actually my favourite. I just also think that it has some of my least favourite bits in the extended cut, especially. But on the whole, the third is the best movie, I would also say. So I don't want to like downplay it too much for you. But no, I really enjoy Boromir as a character. I think his death scene is one of the best bits in this whole story. Yeah, it's actually something that you almost miss if you're not watching it with subtitles, which we were. It's the fact that he screams after Frodo after trying to like take the ring that he's sorry. And, you know, he's genuinely like, oh, fuck, what have I done? Because he just wasn't in control of the situation. It wasn't his fault in any fucking sense of the word. And, yeah, he goes out fighting, and it's fucking great. He gets fucked.
I can't believe it. They managed to make me care about Sean Bean dying in a film. I actually was gutted. I was actually sat...
I'm like, there's two things you'll never be surprised at. Sean Bean dying in a film and Christopher Lee turning out to be a villain.
But that, it was genuinely fucking heartbreaking, like, especially when Aragorn was, like, comforting him almost.
And this, again, ties back into Aragorn's whole reluctance to be a king. This was the scene where he goes, all right, I will not let Gondor fall. I'll fucking take up the mantle then. You know, does Boromir, even after turning against the Fellowship momentarily and dying and everything else, Boromir fucking believes in Aragorn now. Because they obviously have a bit of a rocky relationship to start with. Boromir is really insisting on, let's take the ring to Minas Tirith. Let's take it to my city. It'll be safe there. We can go there and we can reinforce ourselves. We can get like an army and we can attack Mordor from the west. And Aragorn's like, fuck no. I'm not taking it within 100 leagues of your fucking city. Both for obvious reasons, and Aragorn himself does not want to go to Gondor. He does not want to even reveal himself or to have any of that responsibility at that point. Movie ends. The Fellowship breaks apart. And we end off with basically two divergent plot threads now. You've got Frodo and Sam heading off to Mordor, and you have Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli going after Merry and Pippin, who have been taken alive by the Uruks. So, any expectations for the next movie?
I feel like I'm going to enjoy the next film a little bit more. I don't know why. I feel like them going into different groups is going to be a little bit more bearable.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're either going to be saved in the first few minutes of the film, or it is going to be like quite literally the end after just constantly missing out on getting them back or whatever.
I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to spoil anything.
And Andy Serkis did basically nothing in this film apart from get cock and ball torture.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit of Shire Baggins in it. So, on to the next one. And we're back! A whole 24 hours after we actually finished watching the movie. You were not down for actually reviewing it right after that rather long time.
I'm convinced it was about 2 years longer than the first film.
Possibly. But did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot more than I did the first film, to be completely honest.
And you did like the first movie, but
I did.
You liked this more.
I did mostly like the first film, again, apart from the...
Yeah.
The
okay, first of all, what movie are we talking about here? What is the name of this second Lord of the Rings movie?
It's Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
The Twin Towers.
So good so far. Close enough. Yeah, as I was going to say off camera there, and then I held my tongue. There obviously this is the Two Towers.
Yes, it
the
is.
second of the
I
book.
know that. Don't worry.
There was actually a discussion back in the early 2000s about changing the name of this movie because of certain things which happened. You know, in the early aughts.
Limp
Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit existed. That's what
So
happened.
they were going to change the name for Limp Bizkit, and then Fred Durst said he hated Tolkien.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Couple things we forgot when talking about Fellowship of the Ring. First of all, we completely bypassed the soundtrack, didn't we?
Yeah.
A major thing about all these movies that I wanted to ask your thoughts on, which is actually just as well because we're now 2 movies deep, so there's more to sample, I guess, now.
I mean, I obviously couldn't name any themes because I've not gone and looked up what the themes are called.
Okay.
But I can say that, like, I feel like they did a really good job of keeping every area having a little bit of a distinct sort of motif.
Everywhere does have its own motif. Actually, it's a very motif-heavy soundtrack. With quite a few new ones introduced here. One of my favourite being the Rohan theme. Did you kind of catch on to that? It plays throughout this movie. You know, da 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 da. Don't know if that recognises it, but
I'll be honest with you, I was quite tired, so I didn't really pick up on.
I mean, you might not have noticed it, but your brain did, as somebody says. Yeah, lots of good music. Howard Shore, as I mentioned, did the soundtrack of all these movies, and probably, well, largely considered probably one of the best soundtracks, movie scores out there. I've seen it top lists many times, and yeah, I think well deserved. I think it also only gets better going into the third movie, so got yet more of that to look forward to. Also, something we forgot to touch on, just a little plot point, was the gifts from Galadriel to the members of the Fellowship.
Which I, of all people, actually was the one who
Yeah, you were the
remembered.
one who brought this up. You wanted to touch on it.
Yeah, it's the fact that the gifts sort of decrease in quality as it goes. It's like, oh, you get swords, you get like this.
Legolas, we give you this bow with S tier scaling with your dexterity. To Merry and Pippin, we give you daggers of dagger fall. And to Sam, we'll give you... oh my god. I guess I have this like Highland cow plushie. Woo! Woo! Hi Sam, I'm your friend. Let's go to Mordor together. Woo! Yeah, he'll be good. He'll be a good laugh. Who else we got? Gimli. I got a bit of hair. There you go, Gimli. Have some hair.
You can simp over this hair now.
You can simp over my hair. No, like the gifts are obviously. I mean, we're joking, but they are significant. The rope that Sam gets. I mean, he uses it. I don't know if it has any major like, oh, the world would have ended if not for this rope. I mean, they do use it to bind Gollum a little bit. They hog tie him, they throw him off a cliff, and whatever else. I think the more important one is Frodo's gift, which I'm going to test you if you even remember what he got.
I know what I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Sting that he got?
No, he got that earlier in the movie
that
from
earlier
Bilbo.
in the-
He got Sting and the Mithril Vest from Bilbo back in Rivendell, but you don't remember, which is fine. I didn't really expect you to. When it crops up again, you'll hopefully go, oh yeah. He got a thing, which will be important. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. Now, into the Two Towers, though. So one of the things that you kind of, when I asked you what you were looking forward to going into the next movie, one of the main things that you said was that the fact that everybody's splitting up now, and we're going to hopefully see more plot threads with fewer characters, which means we can focus in a little bit more on those characters. Rather than following 9 people all going on one big adventure, we now have
Merry and Pippin just sort of pissing around with the tree people.
Yes.
We have Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli having their little fun moments.
Yeah, they begin the movie going after Merry and Pippin after they've been captured.
Yeah. And then we have Frodo and Sam,
who pick up a third party member.
Big Andy Serkis.
Big Andy Serkis, yeah. I suppose might as well begin there then. So, Gollum, the introduction of another major character. You obviously knew he was coming in some form. What did you think? Did you surprised by anything? Were you surprised by how involved he was?
I was surprised at how involved he was, and I was surprised at how good the CG looked, except for one shot that really oddly stood out for me.
Where was that?
I think he was on top of this sort of raised platform, and it looked like the shadow was a little bit off.
When was this?
I couldn't fucking tell.
You couldn't tell me.
No,
Okay.
but
It's entirely plausible. The CGI is not perfect. Actually, believe it or not, I mean, like, I'll criticize these movies, but the one thing I'll say about The Hobbit is that the Gollum CGI in that first Hobbit movie is, like, good. I mean, it's good here, but they made it even fucking better there. Like, almost flawless. But Gollum really is kind of an evolution on from Jar Jar Binks, believe it or not. Like, probably didn't expect that to get brought up in this video here, but like, what Ahmed Best and George Lucas did with Jar Jar in creating a fully CGI character, a fully CGI performance, not something added in afterwards in post, but actually having somebody there on set doing the work, which of course is Andy Serkis, a very physical performer, plays a good monkey, and the Gollum stuff, it was, I'm sure it won awards and shit, I don't actually remember offhand, but...
You'd assume so.
Yeah, probably one of the biggest additions to this movie over the last one. Probably adds quite a lot of levity as well, in as weird as that sounds. Because, yeah, horribly scary character, very funny character, very endearing character.
Yeah, like...
Is that your thoughts too?
Yeah, like if there's one thing you can definitely say is if anyone said that, oh, I thought he was half-arsing it a bit, you know they're lying to you, right to your face.
Oh, yeah.
He was just...
rolling around in the dirt and the mud and the water. Like, literally chasing after a fish down a river. And it's like, that's actually Andy doing that shit, so...
I loved it. I thought it was really good. And a bit terrifying, because you're constantly waiting for him to snap again and wondering when it's going to happen next. And it's a film where all that happens is he's actually trying to contain himself, but all that is going on around him is people are just prodding him and prodding him, fucking squeezing him.
It's definitely a bit of like an almost nature versus nurture thing. Obviously, The Ring has had a massive influence on ruining his life, but he gets this one moment of caring and empathy from Frodo, which actually is one of my notes I have here. Frodo's protectiveness of Gollum. It's something you commented on in the movie. Why do you think Frodo was so nice to him?
Maybe he felt like he was the only other person who knew what he was sort of going through, in a way.
That's pretty much bang on.
Yeah, so whereas at the time, all that the new S-tier character Sam could think of was just that he was some massive cunt who was going to get them all killed.
You kept saying, "I can't." Sam needs to punch the shit. You kept commenting like, Sam. You could tell he's just holding back this rage. He just wants to fucking get in there. You were just waiting for it, weren't you?
It was weird that it never happened. As far as I know, apart from their initial meeting where he...
they cut that scene from the book. They cut the scene where he came in with a steel chair. Tragedy, worse than Tom Bombadil's absence.
Yeah. But yeah, there is this thing where you're just, every scene they're in together, calling it Gollum calling him Fat Hobbit as well, which doesn't help.
Fat Hobbit.
And it just thinking he is just going to chin him eventually.
Yeah. But yeah, basically Frodo, I mean, he kind of says as much in the movie. Why is he so nice to him? Because he has to believe that he can come back. Because Frodo sees the potential that he could end up just like Gollum himself. And he needs to know that there's a future for him, that he isn't doomed. You know, and that's kind of why he's so protective and trying to bring him back to the light. And succeeding is the tragedy of Gollum, is that he's actually succeeding, if not for certain circumstances. So that was Frodo and Sam, Merry and Pippin. So their adventure with the tree people, which I think you quite liked. I was seeing you smile every time fucking Treebeard was being a dumbass. I think that shit's right up your alley.
Yeah, look, everything with the Ent, or is it the Ents or the Ent? Or a lot of
the Ents, yeah.
Yeah, everything with them I did love, admittedly. I don't know what. Maybe there's just some sort of like lizard brain part of me that really just wants to see tree people
Yeah.
in film. But like, I just thought Merry and Pippin in this film were just much juicier characters as well.
Mm-hmm. Which I did say as much. They would get more to do after Fellowship, because they are kind of just there in the first movie. And they're not really distinguished much from each other. Do you think they're starting to be more separate characters now, or are they still very much a pair to you?
They're very much a pair, but there's definitely like... I think Mary's definitely the braver of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the one that actually is like trying to advocate for the pair of them.
Yeah. And for the Ents to get involved in the conflict, and where Pippin's a bit like, this is all beyond us, let's just go home. Maybe we don't belong here. But of course, Pippin himself does step up at the last moment, when he's the one to think of basically tricking Treebeard into going to Isengard and seeing the devastation. So yeah, all the great stuff. It's not my favourite plotline by any means. I will say, I've talked about how I have read the Fellowship of the Ring. I have read the Silmarillion, believe it or not, and yet The Two Towers was the book that I could not fucking get through, and it was because of the Ent stuff.
Really?
All of that Ent storyline, beginning to end, basically up to the Ents going, yep, we're going to go fuck up Saruman, from their first meeting with Treebeard up to that point, is one chapter. And it's the longest fucking chapter ever written in the history of literature. So far, there might be worse as the books go on. I didn't get that far, but in the movie anyway, it's fine. I do enjoy it, and like I say, it does great things for their characters specifically.
Yeah, the most important thing isn't the fact that look, tree people. The important thing is that it gives Merry and Pippin a reason to actually be focused on.
Mm-hmm. Although I will say, Treebeard himself, another like sort of slight comic relief character. There's kind of a comic relief character in every plot line. Come to think of, this is just generally a lighter movie. It's both a darker movie and a lighter movie at the same
It's
time.
a literally
than
darker film in that the colours are a lot more...
Yeah, and we're getting into the grittier, into the war now. We're away from the Shire. The further we leave the Shire, the more that happens. The darker it gets.
The stinkier everything
Yeah,
becomes.
which makes perfect sense. It's kind of the point. But it is also kind of a funnier movie. But not in like a Marvel, I'm sure we talked about this in Fellowship. Who was it? Gabby the Goblin? The fucking comic relief character. Yeah, no, none of that. At least not quite to that point. Also, did you know that John Rhys Davies voiced Treebeard? So he played two characters in this movie.
I did not know that, no.
I actually didn't know that until quite a while after I saw it for the first time. Just something interesting. Speaking of John Rhys Davies, the last of the three characters, probably the main character arc for this movie, arguably, the Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn, and what they're up to.
Yeah, I mean, it's done again. The film opens with them, doesn't it? Or a lot of them sort of like.
Well, actually, it opens with a flashback to Gandalf, which is probably a good stepping off point. Surprise! Guess who's back?
Yeah, it's after taking all the XP with the Iron King.
Yeah. So we did get a little bit more Balrog scene. You were hoping for more.
I was, but what we got was still good. You know,
not too much. Maybe you still wanted a bit more, but
bit more.
yeah, you got a little smidge more
I
Balrog.
shouldn't.
And of course, the three of them meet up with Gandalf, who is now Gandalf the White. You saw that coming. You knew that was happening. That's something you've had spoiled for you. Oh, actually, sorry. Before I forget, I wanted to ask this about Gollum. I wanted to ask where you think the Gollum plot's going.
Where do I think it's going? I'm assuming that Gollum's going to get more and more salty with them now that he's been set down a path of being battered by
because Smeagol, he was Smeagol for a while, but now Gollum is back.
Yeah, that's the thing.
His
He's
second
not Smeagol
persona
anymore. And I reckon he's gonna try and trap them somewhere awful, and that's where I think it's gonna go.
Okay. Did you catch their whole plan? Because they got to the Black Gates, which is like the official entrance into Mordor. But obviously they decide, maybe not the best idea just to try to run through the door while it's opening for the army of Easterlings, who, as I explained to you, coolest fucking armor in this franchise. Fucking love the Easterlings. My faction. But did you catch what their plan B is? Kind of. They talk about it, but I didn't know if you...
No, go on, explain.
I mean, the Gollum says that there's another path, a secret path into Mordor.
Yeah.
Stairs and a tunnel. And that's where they're heading off to. And then Faramir, at the end of the movie, knows about this, and he's like, yeah, not a good idea. Pretty sure you shouldn't do that, but they're like, nah, we have no choice. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll wait and see. Back to Gandalf and co. So they find Gandalf, and then they head off to Rohan, who is really only introduced in this movie. They had no presence in the first one, but they are the other major kingdom of humans in this world, besides Gondor. They go and find the king. Do you remember his name?
I just kept calling him King Harkinian.
That'll do. King Theoden. Generally, just broad strokes, how did you feel about all these new characters we were introduced to? We had Theoden, the king. We had Éowyn, his niece, the blonde lady. Éomer, who didn't have a ton in this movie, but he was the banished nephew who comes back at the end with all the...
I thought we were going to see more of him. That's what really surprised... I don't know, again, obviously never read the books. Is there more of him in those books?
Not particular. He basically plays the role that he plays in the books. He is banished. He's almost the MacGuffin that they're after, what Gandalf needs to get to win. Because they have been banished. Basically, the bulk of Rohan's forces have been duped into leaving.
All the high-level players.
Yeah, all of the high-level, all the veterans are gone. And so they're left with like a minimal garrison to defend at Helm's Deep. From, of course, the giant army.
Because it's kind of established through the scene where Merry and Pippin sort of accidentally get saved by them.
Yeah.
That they are basically like the hardest fuckers in this area.
Yeah, they have been...
They appear and they just kill every orc.
Yeah, the Rohirrim, the Rohan in general, I think they're fucking great. I love Rohan. I think they're way cooler than Gondor. Way better theme tune, way better aesthetic. Probably stink.
And probably better parenting than Gondor as well.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we meet... again, there's no point me trying to say when we meet, because this film is so bloody long. It could have been like halfway into
After the elephants. You saw the elephants, and I just saw your eyes light up like, woo!
I did like those elephants, I've got to be honest.
Boromir's younger brother, called Faramir, yes. And we get a little bit of a flashback.
Yeah, so they've obviously just reclaimed Gondor from the orcs.
A city in Gondor, yes.
Yeah.
This Osgiliath, which is basically the border city between, like, Gondor and Mordor, for lack of a better terms. It's like Stalingrad at this point. It is constantly being fought over for years at this point. It's like a ruin.
Yeah, and Sean Bean's really happy about it. Which I probably should mention. Oh yeah, this is a flashback. It's Sean Bean. He's like, it's
more Boromir, who you really liked in the first movie.
I did really like Boromir. Yeah, so he celebrates, meets up with his brother,
who seemed to really get on.
Yeah, they seem to really like it. And then it was ruined by the new F-tier character. Their dad.
I'll get on that. Denethor is his name. He is the dad, and he is a prick. He's also slightly insane at this point, and he will get worse. He's a little bit of a doom scroller on a Palantir. You know, one of those magic orbs, the one Saruman has?
Yeah.
Now, we don't actually see this in the movie, but just a bit of background lore. He has one of those, and he has just been soaking it in for years at this point, and he's just filled with, fuck, we're doomed. We're screwed. Sauron's coming to kill us all, and he's like just...
He's been on the forums too long.
Yeah, he's a doomer. That's kind of his problem. Also, he fucking hates Faramir. For no particular reason.
I honestly don't know why. I couldn't say why, apart from you're
not played by Sean Bean.
Yeah, I was about to say he's not Sean Bean.
But I think the important part of this scene is that we get a bit more of an understanding into why Boromir was the way he was in that first movie. Why he was so determined to get the ring and take it back to his father. It wasn't about him, at least not to begin with. It wasn't about him getting the ring and him getting the power. It was this expectations from an overbearing piece of shit. And the biggest tragedy of all this is that scene was cut from the fucking movie into theatrical cuts. Because it's one of the most important fucking scenes. I love it.
I have no idea why that would have been cut, though. That's just ridiculous.
It was probably that they feel there's no point trying to retroactively flesh out a character that to most of the general audience they haven't seen or thought about in over a year. You know, Boromir has been dead. He's dead, he's gone. Why are we now trying to flesh him out? I think that's probably the reason why it was
He probably
cut.
just thought out of mind, save some time.
Yeah, and also setting up a character who they will not see again for another year. Denethor. Spoilers, we will see more of their father. But of course he isn't in this movie. So it's this scene which is perfectly placed if you're watching these movies back to back like we are. But if you're watching these movies once in theater, a year or 2 years apart, I can't remember when these movies came out actually. I can see why it was cut. Even though I disagree. But anyway, back to the main Rohan side of things. And of course, the Battle of Helm's Deep, what it's all building up to, this whole movie. Widely considered one of the best battles put to cinema. What did you think?
I agree.
Slightly poisoning the waterhole here, telling you what to think,
that was, again, usually big battle scenes, I feel like in a lot of films, your eyes eventually just sort of glaze over it, and you just sort of let it all happen, and you move on.
It's just two masses of things smacking into each other.
Yeah, but this was just, I don't know if it was just well shot, I don't know if,
I think
it was just excellent.
I think one of the main reasons why this battle is so good and resonates so well is sense of place and sense of understanding the logic of the battle. There is this push and pull, victory defeat thing going on where we spend so much time at Helm's Deep beforehand. You could probably draw a map of Helm's Deep, having seen this movie once. You know? I reckon you probably could. You know, you got the wall, the keep, the gate, the causeway leading up to it. We know where everything is. We know where all of our heroes are placed. And when we see, fighting on the wall, ladders coming up the walls, ladders getting pushed down the walls, mines coming to the walls, wall getting blown up, battering ram coming to the gate, you know, we understand everything that's happening. It's not just this mess of superheroes flying through the air, big alien shot at the sky, explodes, but you know,
it wasn't just nonsense.
Yeah, we understand.
There was a method to everything you saw.
Exactly. Even though it is literally 10,000 CGI monsters, actually that's not entirely true, at a distance CGI, but great prosthetics and armor actually crafted meticulously by experts and yada. But yeah, generally speaking, big massive CGI smashing against each other, but in the best possible way. You gotta feel sympathy for the cast because what was it, like 40 night shoots or something in the rain and the mud? Crazy fucking shit. Almost broke the movie, but worth it.
Well, they just horrendously stinky by the end.
Probably. Yeah, any more thoughts on that?
No, I think that's... I just saw what was on your paper then.
I'm not talking about that right now. Okay, I will now since you brought it up. Is Aragorn a virgin? I'll leave that with you guys. No, I mean, sorry, there's a bit of this, love triangle thing going on in this movie, isn't there, with Éowyn kind of trying to get into Aragorn's 87-year-old pants. And I'm just thinking...
Very good 87, may I add.
Yeah, what did Ben say about Viggo Mortensen?
I think he said he's the only man that he would sleep with, or something along those lines. Ben, if you end up watching this, do confirm that, as I believe.
Even if that's not true, as far as slander goes, that's
win
perfectly understandable slander. I don't think anyone would blame you. No, I'm just thinking, obviously he grew up with Arwen. You know, he's kind of semi-betrothed to her or whatever. But do you really think Elrond's down with them? You know, getting on sort of under my roof? No. I reckon I reckon he's a virgin. Anyway, we're talking like ye oldie fucking written by Christian Tolkien fantasy. I think they're pure. No sex before marriage. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, back to Helm's Deep. What I was actually going to bring up. There's a diversion from the source material that you wouldn't have known, but it was very divisive. It still is among some people, and that's that the coming of the elves to the battle is entirely a movie thing. In the book, didn't happen.
Just didn't happen.
Didn't happen. There were no reinforcements. It was just the defenders of Helm's Deep holding out, and then obviously the Gandalf and that showing up at the end. But the elves showing up, book only thing.
Film only, said book.
Sorry, film only thing. But works.
It helps you sell more action figures.
It does. I don't really care, to be honest. I think it's perfectly fine. I think the elves were kind of starting to look like assholes anyway.
Yeah, this film
movies.
did not paint them in a good light at all, really, did it?
Until that moment?
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of it was just like, oh no, we're going to just run away from everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Elrond being all like, you can't be with my daughter! And, what voice was that? But no, the elves showing up to help out, because an alliance once existed between men and elves. So it kind of works. And of course, it's pretty much the last time the elves will do anything of substance. So hey ho, they got to go out with a bit of a bang rather than a whimper. One little interesting tidbit for you though. Believe it or not, the whole Helm's Deep sequence was filmed with Arwen actually being in the battle as well. She actually showed up and did all the fighting. There is footage out there somewhere of her just being there too, which was completely cut from the movie and will never be mentioned again.
Is it because it was too much of a detraction in any way?
Probably.
It was maybe, I don't know, Christopher Tolkien flew down on a helicopter and said no.
It was maybe a little bit too my OC do not steal. I mean, like, 'cause in the books, Arwen doesn't really do much of anything. She is kind of just the love that Aragorn wants to win and doesn't really have that much of a character in herself, I guess. We already have the one female, like, wannabe warrior with Éowyn. Having Arwen show up kind of complicates things, I guess. Anyway, I just think it's purely interesting. And you can still see her in one shot of the movie. When the castle's breached and they're all retreating back into the keep, you can just see her in, like, a red outfit at one, like a drone shot, probably not a drone, probably a crane or something, over the castle. I just think it's really weird, because I have no idea how that would have fit into the rest of the story. Like, what did she do? She was like, she just showed up to then leave again, and then return to moping around at Rivendell. I don't know, it's really weird to me, and I want to know. Give us a super extended cut on, like, the 50th anniversary or something. Throw that in there. So, I want to talk about characters, because we did a ranking of the characters in the first movie. I just want to know, has anybody changed? We'll, let's start by going through, like, the ones you already did. So, Gandalf, you had him as an S tier along with Gimli, didn't you? Any S tier additions? Any S tier subtractions? You mentioned Sam.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to make a little adjustment. And I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. I think Gandalf's going to move down one.
Okay.
And I think Sam's going to move up to S tier.
Ooh, so you're swapping. Now, why does Gandalf move down?
I don't know what it is. I was thinking about it a bit this morning. I just think Gandalf the White doesn't resonate as much.
I
just a bit too Jedi detached to really get involved with.
I do completely agree. Gandalf is still an S tier character for me, but, and I've said this before, and I've even told you this, I think while we were watching the first movie, I much prefer Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. And Jedi detached might sound weird to anyone else, but I totally know what you mean by it. Like, there is something of a... Gandalf the Grey is Luke Skywalker circa A New Hope. Youthful and That sounds weird. He's like 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
But, kind of full of life and wonder and joy. And he's so enthusiastic. And he's, there to give hope to everyone around him. Whereas Gandalf the White is more Luke circa Mandalorian Season 2.
I have been
deep
trying
fake.
to. I have been trying to restrain myself from thinking of. Oh, can you get Gandalf to say Grogu?
Grogu.
It's
Stop
me.
that, Grogu. Okay, I'm not saying he's that bad. He obviously he's still largely the same character, but there is something that's a lot more strict and serious about him. He's a lot more down to business. He's
had a beard trim.
Gandalf the White is Gandalf there on a mission, whereas Gandalf the Grey was there reluctantly.
Yeah.
Gandalf the Grey did not want to fucking deal with any of this shit. Do you even remember back in the first movie, when he finds out that the ring is the One Ring, his first thought is, I'm going to go see Saruman and he'll tell me what to do. He's wise and powerful. He'll deal with it.
He wanted to fuck off immediately the moment he figured out it was the ring.
He just wanted to... And then after that, when that didn't work out, he wanted to take the ring to Elrond. And Elrond, you fucking keep it. You're wise and powerful. You fucking deal with it. It wasn't until Frodo stepped up and, I'll take the ring to Mordor. Gandalf's like, okay, and I will help you. But he was reluctant to do it. Whereas Gandalf the White is much more down to fucking business because he's Gandalf the Grey is dead. That's the one thing. You may think it's cheap that, they brought back Gandalf back. But they didn't really. Something was lost of Gandalf the Grey.
No weed.
He is a reincarnation, a different version of the same essence.
You're no longer the man I knew.
You're no longer the man I knew.
Exactly. So I can understand you downgrading him. He's still S for me on a whole, but I can totally get that. And Sam is now S tier, which I'm not even going to ask you why, because Sam is S tier. Gimli?
I think Gimli is just about... Actually, no, I can't do it. I still really liked him in this film. I don't want it... Again, I'm just trying to keep S tier as privileged as possible. Because I'm now going to swap him with someone else.
Okay.
Which is probably a bit unexpected for you.
Okay.
I'm going to swap him with Aragorn.
Aragorn is now S tier. Wow, okay. See, you tend to like the people with the big bushy beards for some reason. But you've now put... I mean, that's fine. Now that tells me you're now clocking more into these characters as characters and less as, funny archetypes that you cling on to. But I totally understand. So Gimli's now A?
Yeah.
Okay, and Aragorn is S. Can I ask why?
I just felt like he just got a lot more focus in this film. Compared to the first one, where he just sort of felt like John Mystery, as I sort of described him. Especially after the end of the Fellowship, with, the scene with Boromir. Mm-hmm. I suddenly now sort of clung to him as the character to care about.
He does, we talked about this, he does take on the role as, I am now party leader. I don't want to be a leader of men widely. I don't want to be king. I also don't really want to be leader of this group. But Gandalf's gone, and I have to. And he just goes right into that role. And does a great job at it. And in the whole rest of this movie, mustering the defences at Helm's Deep, standing by the people of Rohan, even when Legolas and people are like, nah, we're fucked. they're all fucking dead. And Aragorn's like, well, I will die as one of them. Yeah, I could totally get that. I know he's dead, but Boromir, I don't suppose he's changed anywhere. You had him as A tier previously.
I'm going to keep him as A tier.
Keep him as A, that's cool. Frodo. Now he already moved. Even within the one movie, you had him as A, I think, and then downgraded him to B. Where's he now?
He's actually gone back up.
All right, then.
Oh. Surprised, to be sure, but a surprise, to be sure. I'm not the biggest Frodo fan, if I'm going to be perfectly honest.
I'm not the biggest fan, but I feel like if I'm separating how much he annoys me, which he did in this film, I'm going to stress that he did really fucking annoy me for this whole film, because he could have just let Sam have his way with Smeagol and get rid of a big problem in Andy Serkis. But just yeah, he just felt like seeing his sort of gradual little corruption as the film goes on, and how that was actually physically portrayed. Like, he just looks like the life is being sucked out of him.
Like, I say I don't like Frodo, but I do think, to be honest, I do think he gets a bad rap. A lot of people maybe misunderstand the character to a point. He is unlikable. I also don't think Frodo is really actually the hero of this story. He is the protagonist, but he is not the hero. That is Sam. But he doesn't really do anything that wrong. In fact, even him trusting Gollum and everything else, as bad as that might be, I think you'll find, looking back, he did everything right. I mean, it may not have seemed it at the time, but yeah. Let's just leave it at that. Merry and Pippin, who you had as C-tier characters previously.
They're going up to B.
Just to be okay. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. They now have things to do.
We've actually already spoke about them, so yeah.
So I think that kind of covers everything. Now, here's one that I'm kind of interested in: Legolas, because you didn't hate, but you did not enjoy Legolas in the first movie. I think we explained reasons why. Pretty much didn't have anything to do. He had things to do, or at least he did more in this movie. Has he changed? He slid downstairs on a shield. I'm cool by my action figures.
I think if I watched this film when I was younger, he would have probably been a bit higher up.
I think that's the case with literally every human being, yes.
I think... I'm really sorry to anyone who simps over him. I really, like... Handsome man, but he's still going to remain in D.
Fair enough. And of course, the entire population of the town of Bree remains in F.
Yeah,
okay.
The ugliest populace in the world.
Which leaves me to now, because we've now covered previously established characters, because there's quite a few new ones I want to cover here. Because we're extending out from just the core fellowship now. So, Gollum / Smeagol.
It feels wrong to put him in anything but S, even if he's not my favourite. Purely because I just feel like every time he was on screen, I just couldn't stop fucking looking at him.
The performance.
The
humour.
Yeah.
The darkness. The... everything, I guess.
Eating a fish.
How much he adds to the Frodo and Sam dynamic. How much he adds to the whole story. Which kind of makes his absence from the first movie really felt when you go back and watch it.
He's there, he's just getting cock and ball talk.
He also... his design also wasn't finished in that first movie. Which might explain me. You commented on it at the time, like, you didn't expect him to look... The very small snippets you had of him, you were like, that's not what I thought he looked like. S tier? A tier? S tier? Go on, I'm putting him S tier for you. I'm deciding for you. Treebeard? Why not? He's not like a major character, but fuck it, we'll throw him in.
I'll go B. I'm basically keeping B as my happy comic relief tier.
I should ask about Gimli a bit more, actually, because just since you mentioned comic relief, did he bother you at all in this movie? Could you tell that he's becoming more of the comic relief character?
I'll be honest with you, he only started bothering me during very, very, very select bits of Helm's Deep. It was getting a little bit ridiculous. Not too much, but like there's a little bit of okay.
What about being tossed off around the corner by Aragorn? Was that?
I did laugh.
You like?
you know I laughed.
I know you laughed.
Yeah. Again, I can't say it annoyed me. It was like my brain was constantly making a little note of it. Like,
King Theoden. I definitely wanted to ask you about him.
Again, I'm sorry for how top-heavy this is going to be unless you really like Legolas, but
I don't know.
I'm going to put him in A. Yes. I really liked every scene with him in.
I will say...
I feel like my brain could believe he was a king, which a lot of the time you look at someone and you think, that's not a king, that's a man with a silly beard on and a Burger King crown.
I will say Theoden might be one of my favourite characters. I know I have a few favourite characters. It's basically Gandalf, Sam, Boromir, and King Theoden are like my top, I think. I really like him. because he's not instantly likable. He's very aggro with Aragorn. You know, the two of them absolutely butt heads, but you can see everything from his perspective. Even if he is wrong, he takes being proven wrong well. He's willing to fucking be proven wrong and to, you know, listen. That is like the sign of a good king. Somebody who will actually listen to advisors. Now, of course, he doesn't listen when it comes to, hey, don't go to Helm's Deep, you'll just be trapped there. But being honest, what else was he supposed to do? Stay in Edoras, a far less defensible position, a literal wooden city which can be surrounded on all sides? Fuck no. And the alternative, which I think Gandalf was saying, was like, go on the offensive. Don't hole up somewhere and wait out. Don't be besieged. Go out and attack. But he didn't have the forces, realistically. You know, without the Rohirrim, without Eomer and that, you weren't gonna fucking... Yes, if Rohan was at full strength, they probably could have and would have gone out into the open plains and, like, attacked the Uruk-hai army in the open and probably had a good fucking shot at it. Because that is where Rohan, they are spec'd into cavalry. You know, that's where they've put all their stat points into. I'm going to stop with this analogy, but you know what I mean. I like. And I suppose last one, unless there's anyone you can think of. In fact, you know, one more. Faramir. I mostly ask because he does have more in the next movie, so it's worth asking now.
I think now, and this isn't a bad thing, it's just how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm going to keep him in B for now. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to see a smidge more from him in this film, that's all. Mm-hmm. Which makes the fact that even more shit to make you care about him was cut from the theatrical release even more baffling to me. But yeah, I just want, like, but when he was there, and then when you got the backstory, and then when that all sort of came together, you could really care for him.
And the last one I'm going to ask is Eowyn, the lady person.
The lady person.
I don't expect
the
you
Aragorn
think
thing.
Too much of her in this movie, but I do ask because she has more in the next.
The
Aragorn thing.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know I think I'm going to go C, purely because it feels, and I'm going to feel like such a cunt saying this, it feels like they just needed an extra bit of story, so they went, oh, what can this character do? I don't know, have him simp for Aragorn every time he appears on the screen, which, yes, is a hard thing not to do, but maybe it was just a representation of how the audience and Ben felt. So maybe in that case, maybe it's actually a complete S tier.
I do think a lot of her scenes in this were extended cut. Obviously, that is still her character. Her character in the theatrical is still, she can fight, she would like to fight, she doesn't, and she kind of knows her place within the society. Sort of, you know, she hangs back and, you know, takes care of, like, the women and children while the battle's going on. And yes, she does fancy Aragorn. But there's a lot of scenes added in this which are a lot more really hammering these points home. I think I want to fight. It's unfair. Why can't I fight? Like, there's a little bit too much of that in the extended scenes.
I want to fight so I can be in Aragorn's orbit more.
Yeah, she goes from, you know, she starts to kind of go into the sort of a bit of a trope of, like, the, you know, I could do it too, kind of person, which she can, but, like, the scenes were a little bit, I don't know, too much. But yeah, no, I do like Eowyn, but I can see a C place at this point. But yes, as always, we'll see how these evolve going forward. Yeah. So last thing, expectations for the next movie. We've talked about Gollum and Sam and that already. Everything else.
I'm feeling a bit heartbroken about or preemptively heartbroken about the next film, because I feel like Gimli is going to drop even further. I've just got a feeling that this character is going to slowly become more and more silly until he's basically a caricature of himself.
So what about everyone else?
Everyone else. I'm hoping Eowyn goes up a little bit. I hope we see actual fighting and not just, oh my, it's Aragorn. Like Duke Nukem noises. Yeah. I've got a feeling Frodo's going to drop again.
Oh, he's going to drop. He's going to drop plenty. That's all he fucking does. Saruman is, of course, out the picture at this point. Isengard is flooded by the Ents in a scene I think you quite liked.
Yeah, I was hoping they would tip over the tower as well.
Yeah,
but
they tried, but not quite. Well, of course, Merry and Pippin found his secret stash of weed, which I do think is quite funny, because like Saruman does get onto Gandalf in the first movie, like, oh, your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind. Meanwhile, he's got this fucking sneaky stash round the back.
He's got a literal fucking barrel worth.
Yeah.
I am scared if he figures, like, again, I don't know how much he is, Saruman's in the third film.
Well, it depends which version of the third film you watch, doesn't it, guys? Doesn't it?
But in a normal story, I feel like this is where he would try and come after Merry and Pippin with all the force in the world for stealing his weed and exposing his secret to the
You're
world.
not a million miles off from the book version. Not a million. But we're not watching the book version. So, right, we'll see you in the next movie, which we'll watch at some point. And until then, keep watching this video, because this is all one video. I don't know why we're just... And we're back! For the first time, recording one of these reviews immediately after watching the movie. And not a day later, or the next morning, or whatever
next
else.
week, the next year.
Literally, 5 minutes just done. Haven't even asked you yet. Name of this movie. How did you find it?
Name of this movie. Hang on, this is actually good. Return the King. There we go. Fucking hell. Again, I really liked this film, which I've basically said I have really, really enjoyed all of these, apart from some of the first one.
Yeah, you did say during this, while we're watching this movie, that you could see yourself rewatching any of these, except for that first movie because of the first half, or something like that, you said.
I just don't want to watch that. I don't know, it just felt like, it literally felt like a man sat there, lore dumping in front of me.
But at the same time...
None. No desire whatsoever.
The lore might be easier to digest now that you've digested it once already. You know, your tract has been cleared.
It may be, but it also...
You've built a tolerance now for it. Immediate first impressions, maybe
think,
after we've talked about it.
I think this one edges out the second one.
Okay, cool. For me, it is definitely Two Towers or Return of the King. There's a lot I really, really love about this movie. More so than the rest. There are also things about this movie that I dislike a bit more. Don't know if you could tell while we were watching, but...
I know one thing that you disliked. Fuck it, again, this is going to be another non-linear review.
I've given up on the doing it scene by scene. We're not doing that anymore.
This bollocks is too much. The ghost people, I could tell, was the thing. The God mode toggle, essentially.
Straight into this then, I suppose. Do you have any immediate thoughts before I start going through my list?
Immediate thoughts. The King of Gondor took way too long to die.
The steward, Denethor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he that much of a wanker in the book, is what I want to know from people who've read the book. Because it's like, this film went really out of its way
to make him unlikable.
Yeah, to just sort of completely bastard man him a bit.
So I suppose we could just cut straight to this. On your character ranking, is he bottom tier?
He's somehow below Bree.
Somehow below bottom tier. Denethor tier is a new thing. Anyway, let's just get that out of the way first. I don't know where to start then. Broad strokes as a conclusion to this story. What surprised you? What got to you? What didn't? What did you like? What didn't you like? Let's start actually what we did for the second movie, breaking it down into the story arcs. So, Frodo and Sam?
Yeah, that'll be the easiest.
Yeah, and of course the movie starts that with a little flashback, doesn't it?
Oh, fuck, I'm drawing a blank. What was it?
It was the flashback to Gollum, Smeagol, rather.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. So we get human, greasy Andy Serkis and his mate named after the Desert Eagle. And they're hunting for fish. And they find...
Which is called fishing. I believe.
But
I
they
believe
don't-
that's what they call
don't
it.
really use
Hunting for fish, yes.
I'm actually going to call it hunting for fish. I'm going to have to double down now because they don't use fishing rods. They dive in with their arms and flail around for it.
No, they definitely used fishing rods. He got dragged into the river by a big fish.
Did he get dragged?
Yeah.
I thought he just dived in.
No, he didn't dive in.
I was thinking, because at the time I was thinking, why has he just dove in for the fish like a knob?
Anyway, yeah, that's how they discover the ring after it's been dropped for 3,000 years or something. 2,500 years.
In Fishland.
Yeah. Smeagol gets the ring. It's a strange way to open the film, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think given Smeagol's overall importance to everything, it kind of works for
Yeah,
me.
given that he was basically the premier character of the previous film.
And his involvement in the end of this movie, at the conclusion, is exceedingly significant. So I suppose after that we can just go to the fairly controversial scene with one Christopher Lee. You know that this scene's extended cut, right?
Yeah.
You know we've talked about it briefly before, the controversy of him getting cut from the movie entirely. They originally wanted to have Saruman, basically that whole scene, concluding Saruman as a villain at the end of the second movie, where it would have made sense, but we were already running long, so they decided, no, we're going to push it off to the start of the third movie. Then when time actually came to edit that third movie, Peter Jackson and co. kind of realised, we've already got a very long film, it's already the longest of the three, do we really need to wrap up a villain that most general audiences have kind of forgotten about, from a year ago, who will not be that important for this movie? And so they cut it entirely, much to Christopher Lee's annoyance. But either way, it's back now. For your interest, the actual cut in the theatrical is they show up to Isengard, they say, Saruman's locked in his tower, and then they're like, yep, and he can stay there. Oh, look, a shiny orb, and then they go back to Rohan. That's how it goes. So I
imagine that would look really awkward though.
It is actually, maybe just because I know where all the cuts are and that, but I do think it's the one removal, the one extended cut scene that's removal is felt, because the cut isn't super clean, I would say. Yeah, it basically just cuts to Treebeard saying, "The filth of Saruman is washing away," with no real context. Because, like, in the actual scene, it's because Saruman himself has literally fallen into the fucking water. Figuratively speaking, the filth of Saruman is washing away. Yeah. This is not how it happened in the books at all. Actually, in the book, Saruman goes on to fucking speechcraft 100 Treebeard into letting him go. Then he runs off to the Shire, enslaves all the hobbits, and this is after everything else. After the ring has been destroyed, after the big battle at Black Gate, after Aragorn's crowned king, the hobbits all return home and then go, "Oh no, Saruman's here!" And then there's a whole new plot about them like trying to take the Shire back from Sharky, which I think is what Saruman calls himself or something.
Are you sure that you're not making any of this up? Because honestly, you could tell me anything. I have to take it at face value. I haven't read the fucking
it's called the Scouring of the Shire. It's a whole plot point that is just removed from the movie with very, very good reason. Again, though, it's another one of those things that people complain. Where is Glob Shitzo?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense not being in the movie. Given that the movie is already criticised of having too many endings. Which, I don't know, again, we're jumping all over the place, but do we want to talk about that? I guess it is the very last thing we watched. The ending. There were people in the theatres who were complaining, like, this movie ends 7 times, you know? Frodo and Sam on the mountain, and then it fades to white, and then them getting rescued, and the whole, like, slow motion laughing, Gandalf, in the bed. Then Aragorn's coronation, then them returning to the Shire, then Sam getting married, then them getting on the boats, then Sam returning home, you know.
I honestly didn't think... To me, my brain just viewed it as they were wrapping up everyone's little character arcs that they may or may not have, you know... I don't know, how maybe I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to make that very clear. How long had this whole Sam being married thing? How long was that set up? Was that set up in the first film? And I just didn't notice it.
Yeah, I don't know. In the first movie, he does. There's a little bit of setup. He does have a thing for this Rosie Cotton, the barmaid lady. But that's it. It's not like there's a ton of setup or anything. It's definitely there, at least. However, to be fair, he doesn't talk about her again until, like, the last half hour of this movie. But no, I think you got the right take. That's a good take. It is true. They need to wrap up the 20,000 characters endings in this movie, you know. Cutting to white and it just being like, rings destroyed, directed by George Lucas, did it? Like, that would be terrible.
Imagine how annoyed you would have been as a moviegoer if you waited all that time just to get a fucking Times New Roman text crawl or something like that.
Or like the end of any sort of war movie where it just shows the character portraits and a little paragraph saying, Faramir would go on to marry Eowyn. It's like, okay, sure, wonderful. Gimli and Legolas would
found a law firm together.
Would go on to road trip Middle Earth. Basically, that's actually what they do for your interest. In fact, I'm sure they did record some scenes of like Gimli back with the dwarves being all like, "Oh, I love digging me. Oh, gold, yee-hoo-hoo." I don't know. There's some scene. Yeah. So, the large chunk of this movie is, of course, the Battle of Minas Tirith. Biggest battle in the series. How did you feel about it?
I really liked it. Again, I don't think it was as good as Helm's Deep, particular. I thought it was a little bit more. Oh, I'm so sorry again to anyone who may sort of love this over it, which I don't know if that exists or not. It's going to turn out that everyone.
I think it's a fairly even split. Me personally, I'm more of a Helm's Deep enjoyer.
Yeah, well,
I like both, obviously. But.
Yeah, I really liked Helm's Deep. Like, I would probably honestly just go back and rewatch that. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was really good. This was a lot more CGI fest at times. I thought, you know, at least if there was any CGI in Helm's Deep, I thought it was better covered up.
Helps being at night.
Yeah, helps being at night.
Of course, it was a smaller scale battle, which is funny, given that it's still a fucking 10,000 orcs, whatever, fest. But by comparison, yeah, there's a lot more moving parts with this one. Siege engines, siege towers, trolls, all this garbage. Yeah, I can get that. It's a lot more of a cluster. I think it gets the much more chaotic. All forces are being thrown into this, especially towards like the latter half, where you have, you know, Rohirrim showing up, and then the Mimikil, the big elephants showing up, and then let's not talk about the ghosts yet, but yeah, there's a lot more being thrown at it, so it's not quite as, like I described with Helm's Deep, you can kind of follow the logic of the battle a lot clearer, whereas there's just so many different things going on.
Yeah,
it's a whole city that's under attack here, rather than just the one fort, you know. But as a spectacle, it's still pretty spectacular, I would say, just like seeing these open fields with billions of orcs on them. It did, however, introduce us to your favourite character, Harvard Weinstein Gothmog. Alright, so I don't know how this got brought up. I think it was something I only discovered like in the last year or so, and it got brought up on one of your streams, that apparently they modelled one of the orcs in this movie after, you know, disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein. And I'm just basically, I mean, you've kind of been waiting all these movies, scanning just to be like, which one is he? Which one's,
where is he?
Is that him? And then eventually one showed up that you were like, nah, definitely him.
Yeah.
Now there was another one later on in the movie who kind of made you doubt yourself. Because I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody other than Peter Jackson knows exactly which one.
Because there's one that basically looks like his wiki profile picture, which is kind of like, if you think of like the Penny, but more evil looking, I guess that's sort of, you know, sort of just facing it off into the distance of his creepy stubble.
Okay.
The problem with talking about Big Harv is that we have to be actually careful with what we talk about there. There's so many fucking...
Look, all right, I think it's a worthwhile piece of trivia to at least mention that it's on the record they did model one of the orcs. And like we say, it's either Gothmog, who was like the orc commander, or, second guess, it's like the inspection guy at the very end of the movie in Mordor itself.
And that's all we shall say on that.
That's all we shall say. allegedly. We really are going to just be jumping around here. I'm just going to go down my list then. I just want to bring attention to the Arwen plot nonsense, is what I've got written here. Arwen is dying. As Sauron gains strength, she gains cold hands or something.
Your hands are cold.
None of that was in the book. I don't really get it in this movie. They kind of just added in this bit of tension that if Aragorn doesn't become king soon, and if the ring isn't destroyed soon, Arwen's gonna get doxed. Or
I felt really bad because I was sat there this whole time thinking, am I meant to care about this? And I didn't. I didn't fucking care about it for an iota.
You did actually end up calling something in the last movie when Elrond's all like, oh, even if you do marry Aragorn, he's mortal and he's going to die and you're going to be left alone. And you were like, yeah, but just have kids. And then in this movie, she's like, wait a minute, I could just have kids. Motherfucker, you didn't tell me I could have kids. Yeah, so that ended up being a thing, I guess. So yeah, they end up getting married and whatever else at the end. Of course, that does mean
did not go cold.
Yeah. Of course, that does mean that Aragorn had to finally let down the simp that was following him around for the last two movies.
Yeah, but on the bright side, by letting the simp down, the simp could sort of flourish.
Could flourish on their own, indeed. Éowyn, of course, who is best girl of the two girls in this movie. It's a little one-sided in terms of the gender representation. Yeah. Will we just go straight into ranking characters again? That's always fun. And we can maybe talk more about characters in terms of plot as we go.
Yeah, might as well.
Might as well. So as it stands, we have an S tier, Samwise the Brave, Aragorn, Gollum. A, we've got Gandalf, who did get downgraded after becoming white. Gimli, Boromir, Frodo, King Theoden. B, Merry Pippin, Treebeard, Faramir. C, Éowyn, still in D, Legolas, and of course F tier and below. So yeah, while we're talking about Éowyn, like I said, didn't really do that much in the last movie, but got to kill the Witch King through wokeness or something.
The problem is you're going to make that joke and someone's going to take you seriously.
Oh yeah, I'm not being serious at all. I love Éowyn. But it's just fun. It's one of those things that people point out. If this movie had come out in like the late 2010s or something, you'd get all the YouTube videos with the red circles and the arrows and the PNG of red-haired feminist. Tolkien would be rolling in his grave.
Again, this tier list is going to be hard because a lot of people are going up and not many people are going down. So I know it's going to be a bit tricky. Because I want to put Éowyn either in like the high B or like a low A. Just did so much more in this film compared to the last one, which was just a pure sort of just simping across the board. Yeah, I just think the whole thing with bringing Mary along with them to the battle.
Mm-hmm. But two people being kind of told, no, you have no place in this fight. Both wanting to do their part to save their friends, And good thing too, because without them, things would have gone a lot worse. So in the books, it's made a little bit more clear. The Hobbits, there's a whole side plot in like the first book where they end up in this place called the Barrow Downs. It's basically like New Londo ruins in Dark Souls 1. It's full of ghosties, and in the ghosty ruins, they find some anti-ghost daggers, occult damage. Or is it divine damage? It's good against ghosts.
One of the divine.
One of the two, divine. Yeah, sure. So they find some divine damage daggers, and that's what Mary ends up using to stab the Witch King, who is, of course, technically himself a wraith. So he basically cripples him. He staggers him, giving Éowyn the chance to do a visceral attack right in the face, fucking one-shotting him.
That would be an awful way to go, because it looked like it kind of went in his mouth.
Yeah, so the Witch King actually dies, straight up. You were asking, like, hey, but what? Can't they not die? And I'm like, there's a prophecy. There's some elf, like, 300 years earlier was like, he will not die by the hand of man. Yeah, because you look upon a woman. Either way, good scene. And of course, one of the several gut-wrenching scenes in this movie with Theoden's death.
I didn't like that. Didn't like that at all.
But didn't like it in a good way?
Didn't like it in a good way. Not in the sense of, like, oh, bad film, 0 out of 10. I just didn't want Theoden to die, to be honest.
He's still one of my favourite characters. In this movie especially, he really... Something I wish I'd said more in The Two Towers when I was trying to describe his character. I think one of his most defining traits is his insecurity as a king. You know, he's the king of Rohan, but he feels like he's not living up to his forefathers, to his, his own father, his grandfather, everything else. Will he be welcomed in the halls of Sovngarde or whatever? He feels lesser to Aragorn. That's why he's got such a tension with Aragorn. Whenever Aragorn gives a good suggestion, and he's like, "Oh, last I looked, I was the king, bitch." And then, when Gondor's calling for aid, he's not the biggest fan of Gondor either. Since Rohan itself doesn't really have this storied history that Gondor does. Very brief lore. Gondor and Arnor, which is the kingdom which no longer exists, were both descendants from Numenor, which was an island, was basically the height of human civilization. Think like Rome, basically, or like Babylon or something, and long since lost. And Gondor's kind of like a remnant of that. Holy Roman Empire compared to actual Roman Empire, where it was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. So that's kind of Gondor, whereas Rohan is sort of an offshoot. It kind of doesn't have this long lineage. It was kind of land gifted to them by Gondor. Like, you can have this bit of land. You can get rid of the natives, the men of Dunharrow, who were actually the ones who sided with Saruman in the last movie, if you remember them. So, kind of, in that sense, Theoden doesn't feel really kingly. And so, this movie was really him trying to prove himself, trying to, make himself worthy. And he does so. And he fucking dies, and in his last words, he says, what does he fucking say? "I go to my fathers, who's in mighty company, I shall know no shame." Which, yeah. Fucking great character. You had him in A?
Probably bump him up to S, to be honest.
Ooh. I'm going to ask, are we making a tier above S, though?
Yeah.
All right.
But we know that'll come when it comes.
While we're sort of talking along those lines, let's go to the main three: Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn. Who have a fairly slow start in this movie, don't they? They're kind of just with the Rohirrim, but they go off on their own. Side quest time! They're off to recruit an army of undead to help with the battle. Now, what do we think about all of that side of
Now, I have
things?
been itching to ask you since
Go.
it appeared. Is that in the book?
Yes and no. Okay, in the book, there are ghosts. They do go to the Dunholt, the Mountain of the Dead or whatever, and they do recruit them via Aragorn being, I'm the real King of Gondor, you gotta do what I say, yada yada yada. But, having not actually read Return of the King, but this is what I've read, periphery to that, the ghosts themselves can't kill anything, which is very important. All they can do is, manifest and be spooky. Spook damage, isn't it? Spooky damage. And all they're used for in the books is to scare away the corsairs, the pirate blokes. The bad pirates. The Yar Har Shiver Me Timber blokes, the Peter Jackson. All they do is scare them enough in order to hijack those ships and get a bunch of Gondor reinforcements from those other cities along the coast. Because, believe it or not, Gondor is more than just Minas Tirith. It's really not shown in this movie. But basically, Aragorn goes and musters a bunch of other, fiefdoms around the south, gets them on ships, and then comes up to join the battle from the south. That's it for the ghosts. They're only used for that one purpose. He doesn't start taking a ghost army with him everywhere he goes.
Yeah, he doesn't just have it as an ability to throw out like a grenade.
Yeah, his ultimate ability. So, yeah, the ghosts actually showing up to the battle and then being this big Deus Ex, basically insta-win button, God mode, that's not in the books. And I really never have liked it. That is the one thing about all of these movies that I have never liked ever since first watching it. It's always bothered me that they win the battle too easily, because as soon as the ghosts show up, all tension is just deflated. You know, at that point, you still have the Witch King on the field, for fuck's sake. He's still fighting Eowyn. But at that point, all I'm thinking is, we got ghosts. Just hold on a minute, and they'll be here, and they'll kick the shit out of him.
The thing is, what they could have done, and it would have been a really easy thing, if they really wanted the visual of the ghosts, like, you know...
Swarming.
What you could have done is, either, when they get there, you could say, like, oh, they're too far away from their point of origin, so their power isn't really anything, it's basically a fucking tickle or something like that, but it's enough of a distraction. Or they are rendered slightly interactable at a certain... So you could still keep that tension where they do charge, there's that initial attack, but then they are just being chopped down.
Like the ghosts can be killed.
Yeah, which I know goes against being ghosts. But
I mean,
also I'm someone who's open to multiple ideas when it comes to ghosts.
Sure. Yeah, either of those ideas, that or the book version, which would have Aragorn taking on more of the, not just I'm the king because I'm, you know, I show up after everything's done, and by the way, I've got my magic blood and my magic sword, but rather he kind of earns this position of leadership for the Gondorians themselves by basically saving their towns from the corsairs, being like, yo, Minas Tirith needs us, everyone on this ship, I'll lead you, I'm the heir to the throne, let's go. You know, kind of musters these up like lesser nobles and their forces and all that, but I don't know, I guess maybe they kind of thought, too complicated for mainstream audiences. It's much easier if they just think Gondor is one location and not like an entire nation state or whatever, an entire kingdom. But I don't know, just human reinforcements showing up to bolster the defense and still have the battle be, you know, in the balance rather than just the ghosts are here, we've won. Yeah, that's how I feel about the ghosts. Well, actually, we're not quite done with the ghosts yet. Because reversing to when they first enter the paths of the dead and all the ghosty stuff, we have what I like to call fucking awful. What I like to call worst of comic relief Gimli shenanigans.
I'm trying to remember what in particular it was he said, but I could tell this was irritating you a little bit.
When they're going through the ghost stuff and there's like ghost fart gas coming at him and he's going all blowing away the ghosts.
I did see you looking really irritated.
I want to know how you think though. That and all the other Gimli stuff in this movie.
It did make me laugh a little bit, but I will say it's probably been to the detriment of his tier list position again, and that does pain me because he was S.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get the pain out of the way. He is going down to B. And I don't think it's a very high B.
Like, what was all of Gimli's involvement in this movie? We had a drinking contest at the start, another extended cutscene, which I don't like, because it's kinda naff. He's talking about going swimming with little hairy women, and Legolas has a tingly feeling in his fingers as he's drinking the alcohol. Does he feel a rising position from D tier on the tier list? Is he getting some good at being a character juice?
Don't do this to me. Don't fucking do this to me. I don't want people to come to this video, see that it's put, and just find the bit where it says tier list, and then like keep trying to click through, find it, and see that I think he may remain at D. I'm very conflicted, but I just, again, the problem is I think the fact that he has fuck all dialogue probably doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if someone was to say, what's your favourite Legolas line, I'd just have to say, I don't know.
Surely at the end of the movie, the meme.
The meme. What, the old, fight side by side with a fella.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How about that? I mean, that's technically a Gimli-anded, like, I said it's more of a Legolas line. Never thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
And it's how about fighting side by side with a friend?
I could do that. Good line.
Fuck it, the line bumps him up to C. There we go.
That was for the Legolas fans. I like, to be honest, I don't like him either. But I'm just trying to see if there's any wiggle room there.
Because it would feel like targeted bullying, but in the same breath, It's not. It's just that he has, like, fuck all lines. Apart from the meme, and apart from tingly hand feeling, he has nothing to say.
You kind of have to ask, what is the point of Legolas and Gimli in this movie? I mean, we've kind of touched on this in the first movie as well. They weren't really characters in and of themselves. They were more there as representatives of, hey, there's lots of races involved in this. Everyone has some skin in the game. This movie specifically, they are the buddies for Aragorn. You know, they're his support network to lift him along his character arc. They themselves don't really have that much to contribute towards, besides funny lines from Gimli, and action figure moments from Legolas, I guess, of which there was one in this movie.
Oh, what, John Elephant?
Yeah, John Elephant. I wondered what you would have thought of that as well.
I could see someone watching that and just going, what a load of bollocks. Yeah, of course it looks cool, but, like, it just... Again, I think it's the disconnect to the fact that, like, there is this relatively grounded fight, and then you've got John Anime diving around through trunks and fucking killing elephants in a single arrow or whatever.
That was actually 3 arrows. He did triple arrow into the brain. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all Legolas. I mean, I pointed out to you at the end of the movie when Frodo was, like, waking up and he sees all the members of the Fellowship. And it's like, Gandalf, Gimli, Aragorn. And then Legolas walks in, and what's Frodo's reaction? Guy! I think Legolas saying, "And you have my bow," might be the only thing he ever said to Frodo. Anyway, somebody else can probably in the comments correct me on that if he does ever say anything more.
Well, the fact you're having to think about it shows it wasn't that meaningful.
Yeah, and as for Gimli, like we were saying, he's in full comic relief character mode in this movie, even more so than in the second. A lot of that is cut, actually, in the extended edition. So much of the ghost stuff is cut. None of that walking over Pringles, the crunchy skulls, all that's gone. The fart gas blowing away is gone. They meet the king, that's there. They talk to the king. They ask him, what say you, and all that. And then it cuts from that back to the battle. So it's left like, will Aragorn recruit the ghosts? Find out later. And it cuts, and we never see them again. We do not see them until they jump off the ship with the army, which I think is much better than what we do get, which is the ghost laughing and fading away, a fucking avalanche of skulls, big fucking set piece, Aragorn and that leaving and going, oh no, we didn't get the ghosts, and then the ghosts coming back and going, haha, JK, and then pirates, yeah, like, all of that's cut.
I can sort of see why.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I've said this earlier in this video. I'll say it again just in case I didn't. This is the one movie that I think I prefer a theatrical cut of.
Really?
Because of moments like that. There is so much stuff which I just think shouldn't be there. Which is a shame, because there is some things, some smaller, much subtler scenes, which are brilliant. Mostly Frodo and Sam ones, to be honest. Speaking of which, shall we talk more about Frodo and Sam? Oh! I've got some footage of you laughing. So what did you really want to see Sam do to Gollum?
I really wanted to see him just punch him in the fucking head. And he actually did. And I couldn't... It was unexpected. I didn't see it coming. And I was filled with joy. Oh, yes. Just let him do it, please.
Which brings Sam's ranking to...
We've had to create a new tier.
This was his idea, by the way. I didn't actually prompt this.
He is now in the, what should we call it?
Potatoes!
Definitely showing why he's a beloved character, I think. And, now that we've actually finished the storyline, would you agree that Sam is the actual hero of the story?
Yes.
Not Frodo.
Yes, I would agree. Frodo only pushed forward because of Sam's constant prompting and literally carrying him Literally
and figuratively.
Yeah, I can, having watched all three, see why a lot of people are a bit funny with Frodo, to be completely honest.
In Frodo's defense, I mean, let's talk about the ending a little bit more. How did you feel about Frodo technically failing? He got to the Crack of Doom, he was there to destroy the ring, and he didn't.
No.
Did you expect that?
No, I didn't, to be completely honest with you. I was expecting... Because you see like the gif of like, it is done and all that. I always thought what would happen is he gets to the top, there's a bit of build-up, chucks it in, and then turns around and says that line. So, to actually look at it, and that doesn't fucking happen at all...
He completely bottles it.
And he got his fucking finger bit off. That's the bit that made me wince, because it's like...
That is all in the book. The only thing that's different in the book is when Gollum bites his finger off and takes the ring, Gollum does a happy little jig and then he falls off. Which I think theatrically would have been kind of silly. So instead, they fight over it and they both go over the edge, with Frodo clinging on and being saved by Sam. Again, Sam saving Frodo, whereas Gollum falls into the lava with the ring. But, yeah, I think Frodo failing is kind of one of the more interesting things in the story, in my opinion. Because he full on fucks it up. And ultimately what actually saves the day is Gollum. If Gollum hadn't been there, for whatever reason, ignoring the fact that like without Gollum they wouldn't have found the secret path through Shelob's lair, Big Spider, not killing Gollum the first time they found him, and bringing him along, not to mention going all the way back, Bilbo not killing Gollum when he had the chance in The Hobbit, not that we watched that, but that's what happens, kind of saves the world. And this was a very deliberate point that Tolkien has addressed, that was, how did he put it? That small mercies, that everyday good deeds can have these long-term positive consequences. So doing a little thing such as just showing a bit of compassion towards this feeble little fucking thing, frogman Andy Serkis.
But he wasn't trying to throw himself into the fire, really, was he?
Of course not. But it's just one of those funny how things worked out. He actually coined a word for this. He called it the eucatastrophe. Or as I've written it down here, Frodo fails successfully. A eucatastrophe, basically the inverse of a catastrophe. It's when things will suddenly and unexpectedly take a turn for the positive. Which is kind of what that ending ends up being. Yeah, it's a strange one. I really like it. I'm really going to appreciate it. Yeah, Gollum saves the world. Unintentionally. Another surprise caught you off guard. You did not expect to see Gollum again, did you?
No, I thought when he initially falls off in Spiderland, that was him dead. Because I saw that mountain, I thought there's no way he survives that. It was the only time in my life I've ever been duped by the someone falls into the abyss thing.
It helps that there's a fairly long time between him falling and him showing up again, to the point you've kind of forgotten about him. You're more focused on, get to the top of the mountain. Come on, guys, fucking climb, and we're there, we're almost there, and then Gollum. You know, it's... I probably shouldn't clap in front of the microphone. So, Sam, we know, is now in God tier. Frodo. Having now made my little defense for him, obviously... He still falls off a lot, this movie. He still... He won't stop falling. He does make some fucking bad mistakes, but he pays for them, first of all. By the end of this movie, all this trauma, physical and mental, is stacked on him. And, yeah, he doesn't exactly get a happy ending.
No, he looks fucking miserable at the end, to be completely honest. I'm not going to budge. I'm going to keep him in A. I was planning on keeping him in A anyway, purely because as well, I just think, like, I don't know how much this is allowed to really tie into the ranking, but the actual performance of him was just so good as well.
Okay.
Or at least I thought. I could be wrong. I just thought it was a really good job. Like, I could believe that he was actually, like, just completely going insane by the end.
There's an interesting scene after Frodo gets captured and is taken to the tower, Caer Thungol. He's stripped of all his belongings. He thinks the orcs have the ring. He thinks the ring is on its way to Sauron. He's like, fuck, we've lost. Sam shows up. No, you haven't. It's right here. And he could be mistaken for kind of thinking Frodo's gone right back into the give me the ring, oh me crack addiction. He grabs the ring from Sam and then says, you have to understand, this is my burden, it would destroy you. That's him trying to spare Sam, basically. Spare him the trauma. It's not a greedy, I need to satisfy my addiction thing. I mean, you could interpret it maybe as that, but I think it's more so Sam even almost handing him the ring, but kind of showed his willpower. The fact that Sam was able to hold the ring as long as he did without himself becoming too corrupted by it is a very good sign on him. But you could even tell he was a bit like, do I really want to give you it?
Yeah, there was a little bit, but like the fact again he was able to hold on to it at all and give it back. He may be. Is that the first character to do it or no?
First character since Boromir in the first movie, when Frodo briefly drops the ring on that mountain and Boromir picks it up, and then Aragorn has to be the one to be like, give Frodo the ring back while holding his sword, like ready to, use it if he needs to. Besides that, yeah, Sam is the first character to hold the ring and to return it, importantly. Oh, and so last of the three, I guess, is Gollum, who's currently in S.
And I personally believe he's going to remain in S.
That is fair. Were you expecting a redemption for Gollum? Were you expecting him to end good or to end bad?
I was expecting him to end up bad, to be completely honest. I wasn't surprised after how much everything had treated him horribly.
Should we talk about the thing that I don't really want to talk about, but I feel like I have to?
That's your cross to bear. You can.
That is my burden. So how gay did you find the Hobbit, Sam?
As far as I'd rank it, I'd say only a little bit.
Only a little bit. So this is just obviously it's a big meme. It's been there since way back. There were like TV commercials for this movie, which did like the porn music and all of the scenes of them being,
I'm glad you're with me.
The Lord of the Rings.
Gandalf going all like, ooh, this is pretty spicy. Ha ha ha. The gays. It bothers me personally. I think it is way overstated, and yeah, I think if your only takeaway from like their whole character arc and their whole dynamic is, haha, weren't they so gay? I don't know. I think it's a real disservice to the characters.
So I just can't believe that. Like I was just sat there, sort of thinking the fact that you would, if someone tried to do a commercial like that now, where they basically,
it's honestly pretty homophobic if we're being honest.
Yeah, like if you tried,
it's very like Little Britain tier comedy.
Yeah, like if you tried to poke fun at a character's sexuality on a commercial nowadays, you'd be fucking skewered for it.
So I want to make it clear that I'm sure there is a portion of the fandom who like the gay connotations and like to read that into them, and whatever. If you want to, that's fine. More power to you. I just think it wasn't the intent. The intent was more obviously drawing on Tolkien's own experiences in the trenches of World War I. You're fighting alongside people for years. You're relying on them to get through without losing your fucking mind, not to mention without dying. You're relying on each other. The amount of people that he, like, childhood friends or like university friends and that, who died, who didn't come home, have not gone through that kind of experience myself, and I doubt many of you have. There's a certain kind of bond there that is just being laughed at as lol gay. Is I don't know, I just find it really fucking kind of sad if that's the only takeaway you have from it. Like, the end of this movie, when all four of the hobbits return to the Shire, having, done everything they have, people in the Shire have no fucking idea. They couldn't even begin to imagine the horrors they've gone through, the things they've seen, and the four of them are sitting around the table, and they say nothing. And then they just drink. Because what the fuck do you say? Nobody around them can understand. They couldn't talk to anybody else about their experiences. You know, this is people coming back from war. Like,
yeah, that's
one to one.
The fact even I was able to just pick up, like, yeah, this is just, like, the analogy of, like, people coming back from war and being a little bit broken by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't, I'd argue it honestly wasn't that happy and cheery of an ending, to be completely. It was more just an oddly sort of real ending, which was, they get back, they don't know what to fucking do with themselves. Some of them get married, some of them, you know, go on to do other things.
Yeah, we don't really get to see in the movie Pippin and Merry and Pippin's things. I think they do stuff. They have a very successful future life. They, you know, get married. I think Mary becomes like mayor of the Shire or something. You know, they're all good for themselves. Also, like the tallest hobbit or something after drinking all the Ent piss. And then, of course, I think Frodo is, of course, the biggest one-to-one analogy here. His trauma, he is not able to get over it. He is the one who is most broken by these experiences. I suppose you could read the ending as he kills himself, but I think that's a little bit dire.
As horrible as it sounds, I did kind of, and it was a little bit like, my brain was thinking, oh God, is that what I should take from
I don't think so. I think I think at that point you should stop reading things too literally.
Yeah,
Tolkien himself wasn't intending this to be complete allegory. There were influences, obviously, but like one-to-one, at a certain point, this kind of breaks down.
Yeah, because at a certain point I went, if I keep viewing this ending literally, this is, or I guess, I don't know, not literally. If I keep viewing the ending in this way, it's going to be the most miserable fucking ending to any film I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. So I've got to view it literally as he got on a ship to a silly little elf place.
He got magical therapy. That's what happened. And we actually see him smile at the end. Let's go into something even spicier now. Race politics in Lord of the Rings.
What are you dragging me into? The way I like my fantasy is not in the in this kind of way. Let me explain. Mm-hmm. The orcs are all basically a hive mind of Londoners.
The orcs are Londoners,
and
they are a race who exists to be evil.
Yeah,
and they are irredeemable.
I do not enjoy fantasy where there is a race that is decided to be the evil race.
I completely agree.
It's why I honestly don't think I could be much of a fan of more Tolkien stuff, really, because it's not. Again, I feel like I said it at the beginning and I was saying it at the end. Even though I really enjoyed these films, that kind of fantasy is just not my scene. It's not my thing. It's like I like fantasy where you can pick from a million different races to play as or be, and they're all like sentient things that aren't murderous Londoners all trying to serve a giant eyeball. With all that said, though, I have really enjoyed watching these films.
Yeah. I think, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I'm making a lot of criticisms here and there, but these are still, like, my favourite movies. So if anyone's taking offence to me pointing out that there are things which exist, no, don't worry about it. I don't have too much else on my list. I suppose I would be remiss if I didn't go through the "Did you know" portion of the video.
And I'm not going to know any of it.
No, you know some of it. Sam, did you know that I know you know, actually, because you mentioned it yourself, that Viggo Mortensen broke his toe when he kicked that Uruk-hai helmet in the Two Towers?
I did know this.
You did know this.
And I can believe it based on the noise it made.
Yep, they actually just kept that in the movie because it was, that's a good scream. Keep going. All right, Sam, did you know that in the Fellowship of the Ring, when Sam wades into the water to go after Frodo, he stepped on a bit of glass, which pierced through his hobbit foot and then left him hospitalised?
No, I didn't know that.
Despite scuba divers having first checked the riverbed to make sure there wasn't any litter or gunk.
That's fucking terrible, that. I didn't know that, no.
Oh, I got another one. I actually forgot about this. Did you know that actor Sean Bean is afraid of flying, and so when they were doing the mountain shots, while the rest of the Fellowship would go up in a helicopter, he would walk.
Is this a real fact?
Everything I'm telling you is true.
But again, like I have said, you could tell me anything, and I'm going to have to take it at face. You could tell me that Sean Bean got his arse waxed every time he went up the mountain, and I'd have to go, yeah, you're probably right.
No, honestly, everything I'm telling you is true. He was afraid of flying, and so he would actually go up first thing in the morning. Obviously, with all this gear, actually, I imagine surely they could have like helicoptered up his shield and stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about the gear, but he did go up in like costume and makeup, and just climb this fucking giant snowy mountain. Fucking commitment. Sam, did you know that during the fight between Aragorn and Lurtz, the Uruk-hai leader in the first movie, they threw a dagger, which Aragorn was supposed to deflect. Now, the dagger was supposed to be one of the fake ones, like made of plastic or rubber, but instead he accidentally threw the real thing.
I have heard that one before. It's really weird to think that this film could have had its own sort of Crow moment if he didn't happen to deflect the...
Yeah.
Or at the very least, he could have been seriously injured.
I think, unless anybody else can think of any, put them in the comments, but I think that is all the Did You Know moments that every Lord of the Rings enjoyer is obligated to point out when watching these movies with somebody for the first time. That is an actual law. It's in the Constitution. Alright, I think all we have left to do now is wrap up the tier list. Gandalf. He is currently in A tier. Has he moved? He was S. He downgraded to A when he became Gandalf the White. Is he still there?
He's still there because he beat up fella down in hell.
Denethor, yeah. I don't suppose Boromir's changed at all, but he's been dead for 2 movies now.
Hasn't had the chance to do anything.
He has not lost or gained, so he's just where he is. Now, here's an interesting one. Merry and Pippin, who have had some time apart now. Pippin screwed up by he pondered the orb a little too hard. He went off to Gondor with Gandalf and became a guard of the Citadel, got some Gondorian armour and everything, while Merry joined Rohan.
I'm tempted to move them up both to A, but I feel like that would be a bit of a disservice, because I feel like Mary had a bit more to do.
Would you upgrade Merry and leave Pippin behind?
That's the thing, it also feels wrong to sort of separate, even though they're just 2 PNGs, it feels a bit wrong, so I guess they'll both go in A at this point.
Cool.
Yeah. Again, I just really enjoyed any time they're on the screen.
Faramir, who has, I guess, a bit more in this movie than the last. We see more of him interacting with his dick of a dad. We see him being dead for half the film. And then he swoops into Eowyn's DMs at the end.
I think he's going to remain firmly in B.
That's fair. Along with Treebeard.
Do we have anyone still in C tier?
I don't... Oh, Legolas is now in C tier.
Put Treebeard above him.
In C or?
In C, yeah.
Okay.
Just because, again, he did technically appear in this film, so I've got to adjust the rankings slightly. And all he did was sort of poke a tower and then fuck off. So. And
in the book, he does get duped by Saruman.
Yeah.
Speaking of Saruman, why not? Let's add him to the list. We've seen all there is to see of him now. How did you feel? He's actually the only villain... Oh, Denethor, Gollum, I guess. Straight up villain on this list.
High B.
High B. Oh yeah, of course. Aragorn. Almost forgot, actually. Completely overlooked him up there in S.
I feel bad saying this, considering how Aragorn focused this film was. But I may move him down to... And this is not a bad... But there are so many other people who have been shifted up. I think he may go down to A. I think between the going to bed flashbacks and being like, oh, my wife's got cold hands or whatever, and again a little bit of the ghost stuff, I guess, that he was involved with.
That's not really his fault though. Can I raise you his speech at the Battle of the Black Gate though?
The problem is, again, the thing is, I'm also not thinking about this in a like, how do I feel about the? I'm also thinking about it in a. There's about 1 million other blokes in S tier now.
This is not exactly a scientific process, is it? We're kind of just vibes. We're vibes in it.
I'll have to come back to this and decide post, because I actually cannot think.
Sure. I'll just have text go, and it'll say he decided this. And of course, the people of Bree remain in F. Okay. I think that's it then. And with that, we are done. We are done. We are actually completely done. And we will not be watching The Hobbit because you are leaving tomorrow. And I wouldn't do that to you anyway. So, how was this then? You finally watched these 3 movies. I could stop fucking pestering you now.
I did really enjoy the films. I think watching them is a commitment.
Oh yeah. The fact that we've had to basically take today out to do this.
But again, I have liked these films more than I expected to.
Good.
The ending was a bit depressing of Return the King so that has probably put me on like a little bit of a teeny bit of a downer.
But like bittersweet, that's how
Yeah.
I would say it is.
I can see why his sequel didn't get that far. Because it's like, I don't even know where he'd fucking begin writing that.
No. It was going to be called The New Shadow, or at least that was the working title, and it was going to deal with like Aragorn's descendants and Sauron cultists. Basically, human people who worship Sauron and stuff. That's about all we know about this sequel, and probably for good reasons he went, nah. I do want to ask, was there any point in this movie that got you? That got you there? I teared up a couple times. Haven't seen this movie a bazillion times. I still teared up a couple times. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you.
I mean, that's an obvious one. I think for me, Theoden's death as well was
another one.
That was one of the other ones that did. That was pretty close. I will admit, like that. I really didn't want to see him die. I grew quite attached to him, to be honest.
I think those are the main ones, really. And of course, the music really sells, especially that Frodo and Sam bit. Like, God, the whole music in this film is probably the best of the 3.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely the most noticeable for me.
There are some tracks here that I will listen to just regularly. And we're done. Film complete. I now have a stream in like 20 minutes, and I have to set up my PS2 to play some Revenge of the Sith. Apparently. So I'm going to have to rush that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been fun. I hope you enjoy... I always enjoy seeing people's reactions to things that I love, for the first time. Whether it be Star Wars or fucking Avatar The Last Airbender or whatever.
I do feel like, as another sort of ending note, if we're still going to use any of this, I do feel a little bit bad that I've not reacted to this as positively as I imagined you probably thought I would in your head. Because I feel like I haven't had that sort of like overwhelming Jurassic Park is the best film I've ever seen and I've watched it 5 times reaction that I would have had.
I'm not sure you even had that reaction the first time when we did that video. You enjoyed it.
Maybe I'll get in like, I don't know, 5 months I'll suddenly be like, I really want to watch Lord of the Rings again, and I'll update if that is the case.
I don't think this is not the kind of movie that you're going to forget about.
No, I don't think I will.
Even if it's not leaving the theater mind blown, ooh, the hype. We're not teenagers anymore. I don't think we get that at the best of times. Sorry to say, it's kind of the time it be. We enjoy nothing and we have nothing to look forward to. But I think this is definitely a kind of film that would stick with you in a way that, this isn't your, not to make a dig or anything, but your typical Marvel movie that you kind of forget about. And you go, which one had the Iron Blokeman in it again? There's 27 of them. So, no, I think considering just how negatively inclined you were towards these movies in the first place, I am very satisfied with how much you've enjoyed them. I thank you for actually finally succumbing to them.
I have absolutely nothing else to say.
Absolutely nothing else.
Not watching The Hobbit.
Fuck no.